Chapter 325. After killing the Ravenblade Sage, the immemorial sage heaved a sigh of relief. "Qianyin, I've avenged you." Chu Kuangren watched from the side and quietly put away the soul retriever. "Thank you for your help, Brother Chu." After the immemorial sage vented her emotions, she walked up to Chu Kuangren and bowed. "You're welcome," Chu Kuangren said with a curious look on his face. "I wonder what kind of grudge you have with this sage, Brother Taoist, for you to hate him so much." "It's a long story." Immemorial sage smiled bitterly. She briefly explained what had happened. It turned out that the immemorial sage had a younger sister. When she was young, she traveled around the world and met the Ravenblade sage who was also traveling at that time. The two of them met and fell in love with each other. After that, the younger sister of the immemorial sage ignored the objections of the White Lotus Society and resolutely followed the Ravenblade sage to settle down overseas. She became the wife of the island lord of the Ravenwind Island. However, as time passed, so did the Ravenblade Saint. In order to transcend the tribulation and become a sage, the Ravenblade sage sacrificed his lover to a terrifying being known as the Serpent God. After hearing the news, immemorial sage was filled with grief and indignation. She went to Ravengale Island, but due to her limited power, she was unable to take revenge. "If it weren't for the fact that I had to watch over the White Lotus cult all these years, I would have dragged this scum down with me even if I had to sacrifice my life. I didn't expect to meet this person again on this trip to this nameless island. I'm very grateful for your help, fellow Chu." Immemorial sage bowed again. It was obvious that she was very grateful to Chu Kuangren. Despite being a sage, she still bowed to him repeatedly. "Brother Qianyu, there's no need to be so courteous. The Black Heaven sect and the School of White Lotus are allies. Moreover, this scum deserves to be punished." Chu Kuangren glanced at the Ravenblade sage's corpse on the ground. He then lifted his arm to unleash the gluttonous devouring technique, sucking the corpse into the avarice dimension and refining it. Seeing this, immemorial sage's eyes gleamed with joy. It would be best if the Ravenblade sage died without a complete corpse. "Speaking of which, I'm quite interested in that serpent deity. Brother Qianyu, do you know who it is?" Chu Kuangren asked. Immemorial sage shook her head. "The origin of the serpent deity is a mystery. All we know is that its strength is terrifying. It is the deity worshipped by the 36 oceanic islands. Every once in a while, a large number of sacrifices will be offered to it. Even the sages have to bow down to him?" "Yes." Immemorial sage nodded slightly. "Looks like it's indeed a terrifying existence." Chu Kuangren pondered for a moment before he put the matter aside for the time being. Boom. At this moment, the island suddenly shook. Ripples appeared in the space in the distance, and an incredibly heavy Emperor's aura instantly engulfed the entire island. This Emperor's aura was far stronger than the one before. Chu Kuangren's expression changed slightly as he looked into the distance. "There's a quasi-Emperor body 3,000 kilometers to the south, 3,000 miles to the south. There is an incomplete Emperor's body. There's a damaged monarch weapon 3,000 li south." The feedback of the treasure-seeking art came. He could now accurately sense the aura of those treasures. The barrier that isolated these few treasures has disappeared. A hint of surprise flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes as he dashed towards the center of the island. Seeing this, the immemorial sage followed closely behind. In the center of the nameless island, a thatched cottage appeared out of nowhere, and the incredibly dense Emperor's aura emanated from this cottage. The sages on the island sensed this aura and rushed over. Soon, the area around the cottage was surrounded by sages, but no one dared to step within 100 meters of the cottage. It was as if the area within 100 meters of the cottage was a forbidden area. This island is located in the outer seas, not within the 4 domains. Therefore, the items in this cottage should belong to the outer seas sages. At that moment, one of the outer seas sages said. The other outer seas sages agreed with him. "Not bad, Sage Lu has a point. Let's not talk about the items in this cottage. Logically speaking, this entire nameless island should belong to the 36 oceanic islands. Allowing the 4 domain sages to explore this island is already the best we can do." "That's right. Please leave now." The outer sea sages began to ostracize the 4 domain sages. The 4 domain sages did not look too pleased. "Aren't you outer seas being too overbearing? This nameless island has no owner, so what right do you have to claim that it belongs to you? Just because you're living in the ocean? You're making a fool of yourself." Black Heaven's second forefather snorted coldly. The other 4 domain sages also supported him. Black Heaven's second forefather is right. According to this logic, if I live in the Vermilion Bird domain, Doesn't that mean that the entire Vermilion Bird domain belongs to me? That's right. You don't even think about what you're saying. This is ridiculous. The 4 domain sages and the Outer Sea sages were in a heated argument. However, it was obvious that the 4 domain sages were at a disadvantage. After all, this was the Outer Sea sages' territory. When the nameless island appeared, the 36 oceanic islands were the first to discover it. They also had the most sages, numbering more than 30. The 4 domain sages were far away. Although they had sensed the situation on the nameless island, there were less than 20 of them present. In short, this cottage belongs to the Outer Seas. Cultivators from the 4 domains are not allowed to interfere. Otherwise, don't blame us for being merciless. An Outer Seas sage snorted coldly. He was the leader of the sages and also one of the most powerful sages present. He had already reached the great sage level. The 4 domain sages were extremely displeased at his words. Some of the more hot-tempered ones even rolled up their sleeves ready to fight. However, they were stopped by some rational sages. The Outer Sea sages had the advantage in numbers. If a fight broke out, the situation would not be optimistic for the 4 domain sages. D*MN. Are we just going to watch these Outer Sea sages act so arrogantly? One of the sages said indignantly. Everyone please leave. The Outer Sea sage said calmly. Eversodden sage, do you really want to do this? Black Heaven's second forefather said coldly. So what if I do? Eversodden sage snorted. If you guys don't leave now, don't blame us for asking you to leave. As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere at the scene immediately became hostile. The Outer Sea sages stood behind Eversodden sage, glaring coldly at the 4 domain sages. It seemed like they would attack at any time. Oh, I'd like to see who dares to ask us to leave. At that moment, an indifferent voice drifted into everyone's ears. 2 figures walked out from behind the 4 domain sages. They were a man and a woman, and the one who spoke was the young man in front. It's the School of White Lotus Immemorial Sage and Chu Kuangren. He's here. The 4 domain sages' eyes glimmered when they saw who it was. When Chu Kuangren walked into the crowd, the sages around him immediately retreated and opened up a path for him. Greetings, second forefather, third forefather. Chu Kuangren came before the Black Heaven's second forefather and third forefather and greeted them with a fist salute. Kuangren, you're here. Black Heaven's second forefather looked at Chu Kuangren with a gratified expression. Yes. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. He then looked at the Outer Sea sages and said, the treasures in this cottage belong to the most capable. Let's all compete fairly. I'd like to see who can force us to leave. Chapter 326. I'd like to see who can force us to leave. As soon as he said that, the sages of the 4 domains behind Chu Kuangren unleashed their powerful auras. Eversodden sage's eyes flashed as he stared at Chu Kuangren. He realized that Chu Kuangren's appearance had given the 4 domains sages an inexplicable sense of confidence. He was like a pillar that held up the 4 domains sages. Since when did the 4 domains have someone like him? Eversodden sage was a little shocked. May I know your name? I'm the Black Heaven sect leader, Chu Kuangren. Eversodden sage was even more shocked when he heard that name. He had heard of Chu Kuangren before. Chu Kuangren had been quite famous for the past few years. Although he was not very famous in the Outer Seas, Eversodden sage still knew about him. He was a peerless sky pride. However, how could a sky pride give the sages such confidence? Isn't this a little too strange? Unfortunately, although Eversodden sage knew who Chu Kuangren was, he did not know much about him. Otherwise he would not have such doubts. Chu Kuangren was no longer the same person he was in the past. He had single-handedly fought 6 sages in the first city and suppressed a great sage. His strength had long been recognized by the other sages. Without a doubt, Chu Kuangren was their most reliable ally at this time. The 4 domain sages are really regressing. A bunch of sages actually have to rely on a Black Heaven sect leader who's not even a sage to give orders. One of the Outer Sea sage could not help but sneer. He looked at Chu Kuangren. Kid, you may be a peerless sky pride in the 4 domains for becoming a sect leader at such a young age, but you better take a good look at the situation here. Everyone here is a sage, so there's no place for that kid to speak. Get lost. That Outer Sea sage snorted and launched a palm attack at Chu Kuangren. His goal was simple. He wanted to cripple Chu Kuangren first, then force the 4 domain sages to leave. No matter how powerful Chu Kuangren was, even if he made the boldest assumption that he could fight a sage, so what? The Outer Sea sages had an absolute advantage here. Even if they were to fight, the 4 domain sages would not be able to gain any advantage. The surging sage Taoist rhyme locked onto Chu Kuangren. That palm attack was like a bolt of lightning that could not be blocked by anyone below the level of a sage. Just when the outer sea sages thought that Chu Kuangren would be severely injured by that attack, Chu Kuangren casually lifted his fair palm and launched a palm attack as well. The fair palm collided with the palm of the saint that was attacking him. In that instant, an incomparably terrifying shockwave erupted. Two completely different Taoist rhymes collided with each other. Then the outcome was decided in an instant. That outer sea sage let out a blood-curdling scream. His palm cheese Taoist rhyme was forcefully shattered by Chu Kuangren. His arm exploded, his bones pierced through his flesh, and his entire body was blasted hundreds of meters away. This scene caused all the overseas sages to narrow their eyes and their faces to be filled with shock. However, the sages of the four territories remained calm and composed, clearly not surprised by this scene. How could this be? What a terrifying power. Is this really the power of someone below the saint level? How did this guy do it? It was the first time the outer seas sages witnessed Chu Kuangren's combat strength, so they could not help but be shocked. Even their Taoist cores trembled. Now, is there anyone else who wants to force us to leave? Chu Kuangren swept his gaze across the crowd as a surge of sword-based Taoist rhyme rapidly rose from his body. The outer sea sages were filled with fear. Ever-Sodden Sage, who was the leader, stared at Chu Kuangren as his aura continued to rise as well. A terrifying surge of great sage Taoist rhyme filled the air. Chu Kuangren, on the other hand, stood still as his Taoist rhyme circulated. The Taoist rhyme that belonged to the 8 celestial demonic chords instantly gushed out. Vaguely, the sound of Guqin music could be heard in the void. The Taoist chordless. It could be played even without a chord. This kind of musical Tao realm and Taoist rhyme made Ever-Sodden Sage's eyes reveal an unprecedented seriousness. This guy is clearly not a sage, but his Taoist rhyme is on par with a great sage like me. How did he do it? Ever-Sodden Sage was puzzled, but he was also extremely fearful. Alright, then we shall do as you say. The treasures in this cottage shall belong to whoever is capable. Ever-Sodden Sage said after pondering for a while. Chu Kuangren's strength was unfathomable, and their main goal now was to obtain the treasures in the cottage. Hence, Ever-Sodden Sage did not want to have any conflict with Chu Kuangren at this time. Very well. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. Since they had reached an agreement, the crowd once again turned their attention to the cottage that was hundreds of meters away. Their eyes were filled with passion. With such a powerful emperor's aura, there must be some incredible treasures in that cottage. Was it an emperor scripture? Or an emperor weapon? Could it be the body of some great emperor? The crowd secretly speculated as their hearts burned with passion. The emperor's aura within hundreds of meters of this cottage is on a completely different level compared to outside. If you want to enter the cottage, you'll have to pass through these hundreds of meters of emperor's aura. Even a sage would find it difficult to do that. Ever-Sodden Sage said. Let's see who's capable then. The treasures inside the cottage shall belong to whoever enters first, one of the sages said. He then stepped into the hundreds of meters of Emperor's aura and slowly walked towards the cottage. The rest of the sages followed suit. A sage could traverse thousands of kilometers with a single step, but now the group of sages was stumbling within the hundreds of meters of the cottage. If word of this were to spread, many people would be scared witless. Kuangren, let's go too, Black Heaven's third and second forefather said before they too walked into the range of the Emperor's aura. Chu Kuangren lifted his foot and walked in too. In an instant, a terrifying Emperor's aura pressed down on him like a huge mountain. It's really strong. Chu Kuangren's expression froze. No one below the level of a sage could withstand this Emperor's aura. Even an honorable supreme would be flattened to the ground if they went near it. Even a sage would find it extremely difficult to walk. Not only that, but the closer they got to the cottage, the more terrifying the Emperor's aura became. Boom. A sage could no longer withstand the Emperor's aura after walking for hundreds of meters. He was flattened to the ground by it. Boom, boom, boom. Another few sages were flattened to the ground. It's too powerful. A sage won't be able to withstand this Emperor's aura. Terrifying. The few sages who were lying on the ground stared at the cottage in horror. That was the Emperor's aura. Even though it was not a complete Emperor's aura, it was enough to crush a sage. At that moment, a white-robed figure easily passed by the sages. The sages stared at that figure in disbelief. How can he walk so easily when we're all being suppressed to this state? D***, who's the real sage here? Oh my god. That white-robed figure was Chu Kuangren. He had been studying the Emperor's scripture for years, so his resistance to the Emperor's aura was much higher than the sage's. Moreover, he had learned several Emperor techniques that contained Emperor's aura. All of these made it extremely easy for him to pass through the Emperor's aura. Soon he was far ahead of the sages. Who the hell is this guy? Eversodden's sage and the other Outer Seas sages were dumbfounded. Chapter 327. Chu Kuangren walked towards the cottage step by step. His pace was not fast, but it was unusually steady. On the other hand, the other sages had to use all their strength to barely move a step or two. This won't do. If this goes on, the things in this cottage will be taken away by this guy. Eversodden's sage thought. He took a deep breath and took out a jade pendant. That jade pendant was crystal clear and contained an Emperor's aura. Everyone was shocked. An Emperor weapon? No, it's not an Emperor weapon. It's probably something that an Emperor used to wear when he was alive. That's why it has such an aura. I can't believe Eversodden's sage has such a treasure on him. Everyone could not help but be surprised. After Eversodden's sage took out that jade pendant, the Emperor's aura on it and the cottage's Emperor's aura resisted each other, allowing him to catch up to Chu Kuangren in no time. Meanwhile, the others began to use all kinds of trump cards. Some used secret techniques to activate their Taoist rhymes, some used sage weapons to increase their strength, and some unleashed their sage technique Taoist rhymes. However, no matter what trump card they used, it was no match for the jade pendant in Eversodden's sage's hand. That jade pendant alone was enough to match all the trump cards of the sages. The Emperor's aura could only be resisted with the Emperor's aura. That was the most effective method. The Emperor suppresses all techniques. All other techniques would be suppressed by the Emperor's aura. Soon, Eversodden's sage and Chu Kuangren were walking side by side. The distance between the two of them and the cottage was less than 400 feet. Fellow Taoist, your strength is amazing, but this is the 36 Oceanic Islands territory. The treasures in this cottage are ours, Eversodden's sage said confidently. Chu Kuangren glanced at him but did not say anything. Crack. At that moment, a crisp sound was heard. Cracks appeared on the jade pendant in Eversodden's sage's hand. The Emperor's aura on it was about to be depleted. A series of crisp cracking sounds were heard, and with the last crack, the jade pendant in Eversodden's sage's hand turned into dust. The dust was blown away by the wind. What? Eversodden's sage's expression changed. Then the Emperor's aura, which had lost its resistance from the jade pendant, landed on Eversodden's sage and almost crushed him to the ground. Damn it. The Eversodden sage bent his knees and circulated all the strength in his body to resist the powerful Emperor's aura around him. Hey, you'd better straighten your back first. Chu Kuangren smiled. He straightened his back and slowly walked towards the thatched cottage. Damn brat. Being mocked by Chu Kuangren, Eversodden's sage was enraged. He wanted to catch up to Chu Kuangren, but to no avail. He took out a broken blade. A terrifying Emperor's aura emanated from the broken blade. That's a sovereign weapon, a broken sovereign weapon. A hint of surprise flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes. He had never thought that the Everwater Saint would have such a thing. Adding on the jade pendant that contained the Emperor's aura, Zhao Fu had never expected the Everwater Saint to have such a thing. It seemed like this Eversodden sage's fortuitous encounter was not shallow. The things in this thatched cottage can only be mine. Eversodden's sage held the broken saber in his hand and activated the Emperor's aura on it. Soon he caught up to Chu Kuangren. At this moment, the two of them were less than 200 feet away from the thatched cottage, leaving the other sages far behind. The things in here can only be mine. Eversodden's sage overtook Chu Kuangren and quickly walked towards the thatched cottage. 100 feet, 100 feet, 170 feet, 160 feet. When there was less than 100 feet left, Eversodden's sage's footsteps slowed down again. Every step he took was extremely difficult. Chu Kuangren, who was behind him, also noticed that the Emperor's aura within the last 100 feet of the thatched cottage had increased by more than a level. Chu Kuangren also felt the pressure. Was he going to give up just like that? No. Impossible. The 6 supreme foundation levels within Chu Kuangren's spiritual mound shone brightly as he activated his 3 supreme Taoist physiques to resist the aura. Seeing Chu Kuangren surrounded by various Taoist rhymes, the sages behind him were dumbfounded. They were in disbelief. *CK me so many Taoist physiques. How did this guy do it? 3 supreme Taoist physiques? By the heavens, how can such a person exist in this world? How can the 4 domains have someone like that? The sages were extremely shocked. At that moment, Chu Kuangren was already within 100 feet of the thatched cottage. He stood next to Eversodden Sage, who was wielding his broken saber. He could also feel the terrifying Emperor's aura. No wonder Eversodden Sage, who had a broken Emperor weapon, was having such a hard time. The Emperor's aura here was indeed terrifying. Chu Kuangren had already given it his all, but it was still incredibly taxing. Just as he was about to activate the 9 Deaths Blazing Blood art, the Eternal Emperor Scripture and Mindful Emperor Scripture in his Yin and Yang ring seemed to have sensed something and released 2 surges of Emperor's aura at the same time. As if they were stimulated by the Emperor's aura in the thatched cottage, the aura released by the 2 Emperor's Scriptures was much stronger than when Chu Kuangren was comprehending it. These 2 surges of Emperor's aura surrounded Chu Kuangren, blocking out the Emperor's aura from the thatched cottage. I didn't expect this. Chu Kuangren smirked and walked towards the thatched cottage. It was as if he was taking a stroll in the park. He was extremely relaxed and faster than when he first started. Eversodden Sage, who had given it his all, was dumbfounded. He could not believe what he was seeing. What's going on? How can he walk so easily? What method did he use? Eversodden Sage aside, all the sages at the scene, including the sages of the 4 domains who thought they were familiar with Chu Kuangren's abilities, could not help but be shocked. The last 10 feet should be the place where the Emperor's aura was the densest and most difficult to pass. How could Chu Kuangren walk so easily? Soon, Chu Kuangren arrived at the door of the thatched cottage. No, don't. The things in there are mine. You can't take them. Eversodden Sage yelled from behind Chu Kuangren. With all his might, he took 2 steps forward, but he was still 7 or 8 feet away from Chu Kuangren. In his panic, he even channeled his spiritual power and unleashed a palm attack. However, before his palm chi could even get close to Chu Kuangren, it was disintegrated by the Emperor's aura. It could not hurt Chu Kuangren at all. Take your time. I'll go in and have a look. Chu Kuangren smiled nonchalantly and pushed open the thatched cottage's wooden door. He walked in and saw that it was no different from an ordinary thatched cottage. The only difference was that there was a man sitting cross-legged on the bed. It was a tall, white-haired, handsome man with mysterious Taoist rhymes circulating around his body. Even though he was sitting there without moving, he still gave off an extremely oppressive aura. However, what caught Chu Kuangren's attention was not the white-haired man, but the head in front of the white-haired man. It was a woman's head. Her facial features were so beautiful that they looked like they were carved from jade. That head lay quietly on the bed. The Emperor's aura that filled the thatched cottage and even the entire island was emanating from that head. That was right. It was not the complete white-haired man, but the woman who only had a head. What kind of existence was this woman when she was alive? Chu Kuangren could not help but wonder. Chapter 328. What kind of existence was this lady when she was alive? Chu Kuangren could not help but wonder. Just her head alone could release an Emperor's aura that enveloped the entire island, making it difficult for sages to approach her. What kind of existence was she when she was alive? Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation. When his gaze landed on the lady's head, only a small amount of information emerged. Great Emperor's head. Name unknown. Cultivation unknown. Currently in a living dead state. Host, please be careful. What? A living dead state. What was going on? Her head was chopped off, but her body was nowhere to be seen. Was she in a living dead state? However, when Chu Kuangren thought about it, he had the immortal body. Even if his head was blown off, he could still come back to life. When he thought about it, he felt like he was more powerful than this lady. At that thought, Chu Kuangren felt relieved. He then looked at the white-haired man beside him. Heavenly Battle Sage Ruler, Boundary Emperor Realm Cultivation, dead. It was a Boundary Emperor. Although a Boundary Emperor was still within the realm of a Sage Ruler, the difference between an Honorable Supreme and a Boundary Sage was like the difference between clouds and mud. It was the most powerful person below an Emperor, so Chu Kuangren did not know how he died here. Chu Kuangren continued to channel his spiritual power into his Eye of Revelation to analyze the other party. Preserved Taoist rhyme is 40% complete. Time of death is around 70,000 years. Cause of death is suspected to have gone berserk. After a round of analysis, Chu Kuangren did not immediately touch the 2 1.5 corpses. Instead, he began to scan the entire cottage. Soon, he discovered that there were a few other items on the table in the thatched cottage. They were a wooden box, a booklet, and a broken bronze mirror. Chu Kuangren walked up and picked up the booklet. When he flipped it open, a strange look flashed across his eyes. A diary? That booklet was a diary. I know it's not nice to read someone else's diary, but since you're already dead you shouldn't mind, right? Chu Kuangren glanced at the white-haired man before he began to flip through the diary. Today I failed again. I'm already a boundary emperor, but I still can't break through that last barrier. Is it true that no one can become an emperor during this era of Dharma's end? This lady must have been an extremely powerful being when she was alive. Just her head alone has such a terrifying emperor's aura. This is a great opportunity of fortune, and I can see the hope of becoming an emperor. Horrifying, absolutely horrifying. This woman was still alive. She's releasing some kind of fluctuation as if she's sending some kind of signal. She came, that woman came. She didn't have a head, so she came to me for her head. But I couldn't give it to her. This is my hope of becoming an emperor. I fought with her, and perhaps because she didn't have a head, she couldn't display the battle prowess of an emperor. I paid the price of my emperor armament, the green origin mirror, and luckily escaped. Today I went overseas and found an island. I set up layers of barriers and escaped into the void to isolate myself from the headless woman's senses. I hope that the next time we meet I can make a breakthrough. At that time, I will definitely return this head to her. Many precious herbs have been growing on the island recently. It's all because of that woman's brain. The Emperor realm is truly too mysterious. Today I'm going into death's seclusion. This time if I don't succeed I'll die trying. I refuse to believe that no one will become an emperor in the end of days. In the end of days, no one had become an emperor. The diary ended abruptly at this point. The result was predictable. The heavenly battle sage ruler failed to ascend to the emperor realm and died from chi deviation. However, Chu Kuangren was horrified when he finished reading the diary. The owner of this head, a headless woman, was looking for it. F***CK, I feel like I'm watching a horror movie. Chu Kuangren shuddered. Then he seemed to have thought of something. This island was hidden in the void before, and there were layers of barriers set up around it to isolate the headless woman's senses. So now, ***, Chu Kuangren's expression changed slightly. The island had once again appeared on the sea, and he did not sense any energy reaction from the surroundings. Did that mean that the barriers had failed? If that was the case, the headless woman would most likely sense the head again and come looking for it. After all, that was an existence that even a boundary emperor could not handle. How could a small body like Chu Kuangren stand a chance against it? No, I have to think of something. Chu Kuangren was secretly anxious. Suddenly his eyes lit up. He opened his inventory and took out a talisman. This is a starlight grade talisman, a sealing talisman. It can be used to seal all abnormal things. I wonder if it'll work. He had obtained this sealing talisman from the gacha roll. Initially he did not know what it was used for, but now he might be able to give it a try. He walked forward and was about to place the talisman on the head. However, he stopped and turned around to put the diary, bronze mirror, and the unknown wooden box into his yin and yang ring. He also threw the boundary emperor's corpse into the ring. After that, he carefully stepped forward and placed the talisman on the woman's head. When his finger touched the woman's forehead, he felt a warm sensation. It felt like a living person to the touch. After the talisman was placed, the head began to tremble. Chu Kuangren could clearly see a struggling expression on the expressionless head, which scared him so much that he almost pulled out his descendant self-sword. However, after a while, the head regained its calm and became expressionless again. The surrounding emperor's aura also instantly dissipated. I did it. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up as he kept the head into his yin and yang ring. In the outside world, the moment the emperor's aura disappeared, the sages were stunned for a moment before their expressions changed. The emperor's aura disappeared. It must be that kid. What did he do? Quick, let's go in and have a look. Eversodden sage, who was at the forefront, rushed into the cottage. Chu Kuangren had already stored everything of value in the cottage, including the woman's head, into his yin and yang ring. Looking at the empty cottage, Eversodden sage's expression turned grim. Kid, hand over the treasures now. Otherwise, I'll make sure you never leave this island. Chu Kuangren smiled. Oh, are you threatening me? So what if I am? Hey, you can come and try then. Chu Kuangren was not afraid anymore. It was just a great sage. It was not like he had never fought against one before. Don't blame me then. Sky Ripple Palm. Eversodden sage raised his arm and unleashed a palm attack. The violent palm chi contained a surge of Taoist rhyme erupted like a tsunami. Because of this palm, circles of ripples appeared in the void. Chu Kuangren also unleashed a palm attack. The majestic human mountain energy erupted. The impact from the collision of the two surges of Taoist rhyme instantly destroyed the cottage that was no longer protected by the Emperor's aura. The sages outside the cottage were also forced to take a few steps back. They're fighting. So it's that kid who took the treasures. If this is the outer seas, it won't be that easy to take the treasures away. Does he really think Eversodden Sage will let him go? Chapter 329. The two palms collided and a violent shockwave swept out. Chu Kuangren and the Eversodden Sage were both forced to retreat. Meanwhile, the Outer Sea sages also rushed forward and surrounded Chu Kuangren. Kid, hand over the treasure and I'll spare your life. That's right. Otherwise you won't be able to leave this island. The Outer Sea sages glared at Chu Kuangren. Upon seeing that, Chu Kuangren simply said, "Then I'd like to see how you guys are going to make me unable to walk out of this place." As soon as he finished speaking, he placed the zither in front of his chest. His 10 fingers pressed on the zither strings ready to strike. Meanwhile, when the sages from the 4 domains saw Chu Kuangren take out his guqin, their expressions changed slightly, and they quickly retreated. They looked at the sages from the endless seas with pity in their eyes. These guys didn't know what kind of lunatic they were going to face. Zither Dao? No matter how strong your zither music is, do you think you can defeat more than 30 sages here? One of the sages sneered before his figure moved and charged towards Chu Kuangren. A terrifying surge of Taoist rhyme instantly erupted. Upon seeing that, Chu Kuangren plucked the guqin strings with his fingers and a loud clang was heard. Third movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, Great Yellow Bell Lu. The terrifying sound of the zither erupted. The sage's Taoist rhyme was torn apart in an instant, and the incomparably violent power sent the sage flying. After flying for hundreds of feet, he smashed onto the ground. His muscles and bones were all broken and he was no longer breathing. This scene caused everyone present to be shocked. A sage had actually been killed by the sound of a zither. What kind of terrifying zither Dao was this? What the hell is going on with this guy's cultivation? Isn't he a venerable? The overseas sages were extremely fearful. It had always been supremacies who were killed by saints. Since when had a supremacy ever killed a saint? This simply made their worldview collapse. Come everyone please. Chu Kuangren plucked the bowstring and gestured to the crowd with a prideful look on his face. Coupled with the fact that he had killed a sage in an instant, no one dared to act rashly. Seeing this, Eversodden Sage made the first move. He was a great sage so he had the ability to do so. Upon seeing that, Chu Kuangren immediately activated the 9 Deaths Blazing Blood art. The aura on his body skyrocketed, and all 10 of his fingers swiftly plucked at the strings of the guqin. Swallowing 10,000 miles. Raging waves beating the shore. The 5th and 6th movements of the 8 celestial and demonic chords were performed simultaneously. The incomparably violent guqin music attacked Eversodden Sage, clashing with the Taoist rhymes on his body, causing the surrounding void to rumble. The rest of the sages were shocked by this terrifying power. No one dared to go forward. They even retreated, afraid that they would be affected. Too powerful. Where did this guy come from? Putting aside the zither Dao that he uses, why is that blood-colored flame on his body somewhat similar to the legendary 9 Deaths Blazing Blood art? What kind of joke is this? Isn't the 9 Deaths Blazing Blood technique a taboo suicide technique for sages? How dare he use it? Not to mention the overseas saints, even the saints of the 4 regions were secretly speechless. Naturally, they knew that Chu Kuangren knew the 9 Deaths Blazing Blood art, but they did not expect him to use it as an ordinary technique. It's a forbidden technique, yet he can use it at will. Could it be that he has a way to resist the side effects of this technique? That's impossible. Even after so many years of research, no one has been able to make up for this flaw. Otherwise, why would it be classified as taboo? Just because the previous sages couldn't do it doesn't mean that Chu Kuangren can't. Don't forget, this guy can't be measured with common sense. Upon hearing that, the sages fell silent. They had seen too much of Chu Kuangren's terrifying abilities in the past few years. Chu Kuangren had done many things that everyone thought were impossible. So even if he had a way to resist the side effects of the 9 Deaths Blazing Blood art, it did not seem that difficult to accept. Torrential waves. Honorable Eversodden suddenly let out a loud roar, and a horrifying surge of Taoist rhyme erupted from his body. The sound of splashing water could be heard in the void. That surge of Taoist rhyme carried an extremely chilling energy that intertwined with the guqin music. For a moment, it overpowered the guqin music. Oh, this is some kind of sage ruler technique. Coupled with the fact that this person's cultivation level has reached the Great Sage standard, it's no wonder that he can unleash such combat strength. Chu Kuangren was surprised. Although he had a bunch of Sage Ruler techniques and Emperor techniques, he knew that Sage Ruler techniques were extremely rare. Most sages only used ordinary Sage techniques. Faced with Honorable Eversodden's Taoist rhyme attack, Chu Kuangren suddenly changed his tune and unleashed an even more powerful Guqin music Taoist rhyme. In an instant, the clouds in the sky surged and thunder rumbled. Even the ground was affected as earth chi surged and the ground trembled. It was as if the heavens and the earth were accompanying this Guqin music. Seventh movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, heavenly and earthly reverberation. The horrifying Guqin music erupted, wave after wave from the heavens and the earth, gushing towards Eversodden Sage from all directions. That power was just too shocking. Even Eversodden Sage could not help but be shocked. He frantically channeled his Taoist rhyme to resist the Guqin music Taoist rhyme. The splashing sound of water and the majestic Guqin music collided. Gradually the sound of water faded away, but the Guqin music grew louder. D***eminent. Myriad rivers converge. Eversodden Sage let out a long roar and channeled the spiritual power in his body to its limit. He even took out the broken saber that he used to resist the Emperor's aura and used its Emperor's aura to strengthen his own cultivation technique. In an instant, it was as if thousands of streams in the sky converged towards Eversodden Sage, forming an extremely majestic and terrifying Taoist rhyme that was as vast as the boundless ocean. It then surged towards Chu Kuangren. The Guqin music was forcefully broken at that moment. Go to hell, kid. That attack was Eversodden Sage's strongest attack. It was so powerful that even the void was distorted. It was as if an ocean had really converged on Eversodden Sage's body and smashed towards Chu Kuangren. This B***starred is dead meat. The Outer Sea sages stared at that scene. In their opinion, Chu Kuangren would not be able to withstand that attack. Not many people in the entire 36 oceanic islands could. Under the watchful eyes of the sages, Chu Kuangren plucked the Guqin strings with his fingers, and the Guqin music between the heavens and earth stopped abruptly. However, there was an earth-shattering, indescribable Taoist rhyme that gathered on Chu Kuangren's body and the Guqin strings at his fingertips. Final movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords. Grand melodic soundless. Chu Kuangren suddenly let go of the Guqin strings, but there was no sound. However, a terrifying Guqin music Taoist rhyme had already erupted. The great Tao was shapeless and the grand melodic soundless. This was the highest realm of Guqin Tao. It was not that there was no sound, but the sound had already merged with the Taoist Tao. It could not be heard, nor could it be touched. No one knew where it came from and no one knew when it disappeared. Silence was better than sound. The moment Chu Kuangren let go of the Guqin strings, Eversodden Sage suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. The Guqin music Taoist rhyme rushed towards him. It was majestic and silent, yet it easily destroyed his Taoist rhyme. In an instant, Eversodden Sage's Taoist rhyme was dispersed, and his entire body was struck by the Guqin music Taoist rhyme. Even with his great sage body, his bones, flesh and blood were instantly shattered, and he was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. Chapter 330. The great voice of desolation instantly shattered Eversodden Sage's Taoist rhyme. He slowly walked in front of Eversodden Sage, and before anyone could react, he unsheathed his sword and killed him. This scene shocked all the overseas sages present. That was a great sage. How could he kill him just like that? This level of strength was simply too terrifying. Chu Kuangren stood where he was with a sword in one hand and a Guqin in the other. He said calmly, "Excuse me, is there anyone else who wants my treasures?" He asked very politely. But no one dared to say anything. Everyone looked at Chu Kuangren as if they were looking at an evil Azura. Chu Kuangren was a person who could kill even a great sage. There was probably not a single person present who could stand a chance against him. Whether they could kill Chu Kuangren was still a question, but they would definitely suffer heavy casualties. Moreover, the sages of the 4 domains were present as well. For a moment, none of the saints from the outer seas dared to move. Then I'll be taking the treasure. With a chuckle, Chu Kuangren lifted his arm and unleashed a terrifying suction force that sucked the Eversodden Sage into the avarice dimension. Over the past few days he had encountered a lot of sages and killed quite a few of them. Now, with the addition of a great sage, he had refined so much flesh and blood essence. There were already signs of a breakthrough in his cultivation. One more step and he would be a supreme paragon. Third Patriarch, Second Patriarch, can we go now? Chu Kuangren asked the two forefathers of Black Heaven sect. The two nodded. Then the three of them left. The rest of the sages looked at each other. There was nothing valuable left here, so they might as well go to other places to take a look. The sages continued to explore the island. Chu Kuangren and the other two had also scavenged the island. With the treasure locating skill at his disposal, his efficiency in scavenging treasures was much higher than the other sages. Black Heaven's third and second forefathers were left speechless by his side. They felt as if Chu Kuangren was strolling in his own backyard, knowing exactly where the treasures were hidden. Chu Kuangren had already gotten his hands on a whole bunch of sage-grade herbs while the others had gone through so much trouble to find a single sage-grade herb. There was no way they could compare. Coupled with the emperor-grade treasures in the cottage, Chu Kuangren could easily claim that he had taken 70 to 80% of the most valuable treasures on this unnamed island. It's about time to leave, Chu Kuangren said. Third forefather and second forefather nodded. At this moment, the sky suddenly darkened. Suddenly, many celestial boats appeared in the sky. Not only in the sky but also on the surface of the sea, a group of strange-looking people appeared. Some parts of these people's bodies were more or less covered in scales. There were so many of them that it was impossible to count them all. In a short period of time, the entire nameless island was surrounded. These are the Scale Tribe. Chu Kuangren frowned slightly. He had heard of a tribe that lived in the ocean called the Scale Tribe. They were the rulers of the ocean. That's right, it's the Scale Tribe. Why are they here? Second forefather of Black Heaven frowned. I am the Scale Tribe's young master, Bei Ming-san. I would like to invite the Black Heaven sect leader, Chu Kuangren, to show himself. At that moment, a voice came from the sky. In the air, a young man with black hair that reached his shoulders was holding a silver trident. His body was surging with extremely thick Taoist rhymes. What caught people's attention was that apart from a few golden scales on his forehead, this black-haired youth was no different from an ordinary person. In the Scaled Tribe, talent was determined by the number of scales one had. The fewer the scales one had, the better their talent was. It was obvious that this black-haired youth's talent was extraordinary. Young lad, do you have any grudges with the Scaled Tribe? Black Heaven's second forefather asked curiously. Chu Kuangren smiled helplessly. This is my first time meeting someone from the Scaled Tribe. What grudges could there be? If that's the case, then he must be here for the emperor-grade treasure in your hands, third forefather said solemnly. Let me meet him first. Chu Kuangren said calmly. Then, his figure turned into a stream of light and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Bei Ming-san. Looking at him, he activated his Eye of Revelation and quickly analyzed his opponent's information. Bei Ming-san, the Scaled Tribe's young master, an ancient sky pride from 70,000 years ago with an honorable supreme cultivation base. He cultivates the Scaled Tribe's incomplete northern dark black water technique. His combat strength is comparable to a sage's. An incomplete Emperor's scripture. Moreover, it was an Emperor's scripture that cultivated the foundation. Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised. Emperor's scriptures that cultivated the foundation were very rare. Even the two Emperor's scriptures that Chu Kuangren possessed did not have such a technique. What he had were Emperor's insights and Emperor techniques. This Bei Ming-san in front of him had an Emperor's scripture that cultivated the foundation. Although it was incomplete, it was still many times better than a sage ruler technique. At the very least, his heavenly crescent myrtle sword art could not compare. After all, that cultivation technique was originally just an ordinary sage technique. Although he had improved it many times and it had reached the level of a sage ruler technique, it was still far from being comparable to an emperor's scripture. Could it be that I've met a sky pride that's on par with me this time? Chu Kuangren thought about it and felt a little excited. You're Chu Kuangren? The Scaled Tribe's young master, Bei Ming-san, asked. Suddenly, the trident in his hand trembled. Although it was only for a moment, he still noticed it. A look of contemplation flashed across his eyes. Yes. Let me ask you, do you have a halberd with you? Or is the treasure that you obtained in the cottage a halberd? Bei Ming-san's eyes lit up. The movement of the trident reminded him of something, and he could not help but feel a little excited. His purpose of coming here was to obtain the emperor-grade treasures from this island. Now, it seemed that he had an unexpected gain. I don't need to tell you that. How about this, let's have a duel. If you lose, you'll give me the treasures that you obtained in the cottage. What do you think? What if you lose? That's impossible. Bei Ming-san said proudly, ever since I've appeared in this world I've never lost. Other than me, even the strongest Sky Pride in the Scaled Tribe can't take more than 3 moves from me. You're no match for me either. With the trident in his hand, Bei Mingsan's aura surged as Taoist rhymes surrounded him like crashing waves that slammed into the void. Don't be too confident. How about this: if you lose, I don't want anything else. I just want the trident in your hand. What do you think? Chu Kuangren could tell that the trident was extraordinary at first glance. It was surrounded by an aura that was very close to an emperor's aura. It was a boundary emperor weapon. Not only that, but when Chu Kuangren saw the boundary emperor weapon, he could feel the heavens halberd in his yin and yang ring move a little. Coupled with Bei Mingsan's question about whether he had a halberd with him, it was obvious that there was a connection between the two. Do you know what this trident is? Bei Mingsan's expression darkened. What is it? This is the Scaled Tribe's most precious treasure, and it's also the symbol of the Scaled Tribe's young master. Do you think you can afford it? The Taoist rhyme on his body intensified and surged towards Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren, on the other hand, stood still. That extremely violent Taoist rhyme was like a gentle breeze to him. It did not affect him at all. Then do you know how much more valuable the treasures I obtained in the cottage is compared to the trident in your hand? Do you think you can afford it? Chu Kuangren said coldly. Everything else aside, that boundary emperor's body alone was worth almost as much as the trident. Not to mention the terrifying great empress head. Are you going to fight or not? Just tell me. What kind of man are you to be so wishy-washy? Chu Kuangren snorted, which made Bei Mingsan's expression turn even darker. All right, I'll let you. Chapter 331. All right, I'll grant you your wish. After being provoked by Chu Kuangren, the prideful Bei Mingsan no longer hesitated and agreed. He did not think that he would lose. His long history of victories had given him great confidence. Moreover, the trident in his hand was a quasi-emperor weapon. With his strength and this quasi-emperor weapon, even a great sage expert would have to retreat in front of him. He felt that Chu Kuangren would not be able to defeat him. In fact, it was not just Bei Mingsan who felt that way. Every Scaled Tribe member thought that Chu Kuangren would not be able to defeat Bei Mingsan. Our young master's strength is earth-shattering. With the trident weapon, even a sage would have to face him. How can Chu Kuangren compare? That's right. He's just waiting to lose. This person is considered a peerless Sky Pride on the land. He has reached the honorable realm at such a young age, and rumor has it that he's on par with a sage. It's a shame that he has encountered our young master. He's destined to lose. The Scaled Tribe members discussed among themselves. The sages on the island were curious as well. They were well aware of Chu Kuangren's combat strength, but Bei Mingsan's strength was not to be underestimated either. With a boundary emperor weapon, could his strength really be on par with Chu Kuangren's? Bring it on. Bei Mingsan waved his trident weapon, and a terrifying surge of water-based Taoist rhyme erupted, turning into a terrifying torrent that surged towards Chu Kuangren. That attack alone was no weaker than a sage's attack. Chu Kuangren did not use any weapons. He simply raised his hand and unleashed a palm attack. The incomparably violent human mountain stamp exploded in an instant, and a terrifying force crushed out like a divine mountain, shattering the torrent. Bei Mingsan's eyes lit up. Great. You're indeed the strongest Sky Pride on the land. It seems that I've met my match today. He looked a little excited as he gripped his trident tightly and charged towards Chu Kuangren. As the trident danced in the air, a monstrous torrent of energy erupted, and the sound of tsunami-like water continued to resound in the void. Chu Kuangren unsheathed the Descendant Self-Sword at his waist. The moment he unsheathed it, an extremely cold surge of sword-based Taoist rhyme instantly tore Bei Mingsan's Taoist rhyme apart and forced him to retreat 100 meters. Then a majestic sword chi erupted. With a slash, a majestic purple sword ray with a Taoist rhyme that seemed capable of tearing the heavens apart blasted towards Bei Mingsan. Black water billows. Bei Mingsan shouted and activated his ultimate technique. This was a Saint Ruler technique that was close to an Emperor technique. With the support of the trident in his hand, its power was almost on par with an Emperor technique. The trident shot out and the two forces collided with each other in the air. An incomparably majestic force surged out in an instant, crazily beating the void like a tidal wave, washing away everything. Under the impact of this force, Bei Mingsan was blasted back dozens of feet. The trident in his hand buzzed from the backlash and he almost lost his grip on it. This person actually has such terrifying strength. Bei Mingsan couldn't believe it. Whenever he battled against Sky Prides, it was always him who crushed them. Yet now he was at a disadvantage against Chu Kuangren. He had never encountered such a thing before. So this is your strength? How disappointing. Chu Kuangren said calmly. Comparable to a great sage? In Chu Kuangren's opinion, Bei Mingsang could at most exchange blows with a great sage, but it was impossible for him to defeat him. But he was different. He was someone who could even kill great saints. Again? Bei Mingsang roared angrily. He waved the trident in his hand, channeling his Taoist rhymes and spiritual power to the extreme, interweaving into a black ocean in the void. The ocean was turbulent, and waves rose one after another. A vast and boundless force shrouded Chu Kuangren. It was a dominating force. If an ordinary sage were to face such an attack, they would not even be able to block it for a second. Unfortunately, Chu Kuangren was fighting Bei Mingsang, and his combat strength was much stronger than an ordinary sage's. Lose? Bei Mingsang roared and swung the trident in his hand. A surge of energy instantly erupted. The boundless ocean surged towards Chu Kuangren. This attack is quite interesting. But it's not enough. Chu Kuangren smiled and a blood-colored flame suddenly appeared on his body. He had activated the 9 Deaths blazing blood art. With the Descendant self-sword in his hand, he suddenly swung his sword. Heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique. The sword slashed out, and the sword light was incomparably magnificent. The boundless ocean was torn in half by the sword ray. The ocean was split in half by the sword ray. What? Bei Mingsang's pupils shrank and his face was filled with shock. The sword ray was like a hot knife through butter as it swept towards him. Block it. Bei Mingsang roared and swung the trident in his hand. The sword ray collided with the trident, and an earth-shattering clanging sound erupted. The sound waves continued to spread. Unable to withstand the force, Bei Mingsang spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. The trident in his hand was also shaken. Chu Kuangren's figure turned into a stream of light and dashed towards the trident, grabbing it in his hand. Just as he succeeded, an extremely cold aura came from behind him, and a palm chi shrouded in frost blasted towards him. Umph! With a soft grunt, Chu Kuangren retaliated with a backhand palm. A golden Buddhist light erupted. Giant palm of exorcism. The golden palm collided with the frost palm chi, and the frost mixed with the golden Buddhist light shot out, sweeping the surroundings. Chu Kuangren was forced back a few feet, and he had a good look at the person who ambushed him. It was a white-haired old man. This old man's face was covered with a layer of scales, and he was obviously a sage of the scaled tribe. He was staring at Chu Kuangren coldly. Kid, hand over the trident. Chu Kuangren held the trident, spun it around twice, and then put it into his yin and yang ring under the old man's furious gaze. Since he lost the bet, this trident will naturally be mine. Don't you think the scaled tribe is so untrustworthy? The scaled tribe can use other things to trade with you, be it soulstones or treasures from the sea, but not this item. I'm sorry, but this is all I want. Chu Kuangren said calmly. If that's the case, don't even think about leaving this island today. The scaled tribe sage said with a grim look. Behind him, the group of scaled tribe members were closing in on Chu Kuangren as well, surrounding him in layers and layers. Even a sage was a little intimidated by their terrifying aura. There were too many scaled tribe members, and they were in the middle of the ocean, which was the scaled tribe's territory. The situation was very disadvantageous for Chu Kuangren. If the scaled tribe is prepared to fight me to the death, then come at me. A guqin appeared before Chu Kuangren. The sages could not help but shiver at the sight of that guqin. They knew that if Chu Kuangren were to play the guqin, the 8 celestial demonic chords would definitely kill off half of the scaled tribe members. Guqin music was originally suitable for wide-area attacks. Boom. At that moment, a terrifying wave of energy suddenly came from behind the scaled tribe, followed by a series of screams. Oh, what is this thing? Quick, kill her. Everyone looked over. A figure had suddenly appeared behind the scaled tribe. It was a headless body. It walked among the countless scaled tribe members as if it was in a deserted place. Wherever it went, the scaled tribe members would turn into dried corpses as if their life force had been sucked out of them. Everyone, including the sages, gasped when they saw that headless body. Chu Kuangren could not help but be shocked. She's here. Chapter 332. She's here. Chu Kuangren could not help but be shocked when he saw the headless lady of the scaled tribe. His head had still attracted the headless lady here. Even though he had already sealed the head with a sealing talisman, the headless woman had still sensed the previous fluctuations. D***, what kind of monster is this? Why can't we kill her? How can she move without a head? What's going on? Our life essence is being sucked away by her. Quick, we need to kill this monster as soon as possible. The scaled tribe continued to attack the headless lady. However, no matter what they did, any energy that got close to the headless lady would be instantly disintegrated. They could not hurt her at all. It was the same for the scaled tribe's sage. Oceanic overturning palm. One of the scaled tribe's sages roared and leaped towards the headless lady. He then channeled all of his spiritual power and unleashed a palm attack. A violent surge of palm chi poured out with a force that could overturn rivers and seas. However, when that surge of energy approached the headless lady did not use any powerful cultivation techniques. All she did was gently lift her hand, and the sage's Taoist rhyme was instantly shattered. Then, the headless lady's figure flashed and disappeared from where she was. When she reappeared, she was holding the head of the scaled tribe's sage who had attacked her. That scene shocked everyone. No one saw clearly how she killed the saint. All they saw was the headless lady taking the scaled tribe's sage's head away, and a huge amount of blood gushed out from his neck. Then, the sage fell to the ground with a loud thud. The headless lady held the head in her hand and pressed it against her own neck as if she was trying to reattach it. However, since it was not her own head, she could not reattach it no matter how hard she tried. In the end, as if enraged, she smashed the sage's head onto the ground, smashing it into a pulp. DSK, what a hot-tempered one. Chu Kuangren clicked his tongue not far away. It seemed that due to the sealing talisman, the headless lady could not sense that her head was with Chu Kuangren for the time being. She could only follow her instincts to this island. The best thing to do now was to escape as soon as possible. After all, he was no match for the headless woman. The headless woman. That's one of the 7 great ghost stories, the headless woman. I thought it was just some groundless rumor, but it turns out to be true. The headless woman really exists. A sage gulped and said. It was too terrifying. The headless woman killed sages as if they were dogs. It was as easy as blowing off dust. But why did the headless woman suddenly appear here? Who knows? Let's leave first. That's right. I don't want to die here. The group of sages fled in panic. The headless woman went on a killing spree among the scaled tribe. Wherever she went, a strange aura filled the air, and all the scaled tribe members were turned into dried corpses. Even a sage would not be able to withstand a single move from him. Swoosh, taking advantage of the chaos in the scaled tribe, Chu Kuangren went up to Black Heaven's second and third forefathers and took out a talisman. Second patriarch, third patriarch, grab me. Without suspecting anything, the 2 forefathers grabbed onto Chu Kuangren's shoulders. Chu Kuangren crushed the talisman, and in an instant, an invisible spatial energy enveloped the 3 of them. In the blink of an eye, the 3 of them disappeared on the spot. On the island, the headless woman was still on a killing spree. The sages were either dead or had fled. They could not face such a terrifying attack head-on. The tens of millions of scaled tribe members were defeated and returned to the ocean. Soon enough, the headless woman was the only one left on the island. The headless woman continued to rummage through the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood. Occasionally she would pick up a head and place it on her own head, but she could not connect it. She was so infuriated that she unleashed a terrifying energy wave that shook the entire unnamed island. With the headless woman at the center, it began to crumble. Not long after, the entire island crumbled and sank to the bottom of the ocean. The headless woman stood in the void, emanating a terrifying emperor's aura. The entire ocean surged violently because of her emperor's aura, causing countless sea creatures to tremble in fear. Some of the ordinary living beings did not sense anything, but those with higher cultivation levels could sense how terrifying the headless woman was. This was especially true for the sages, who almost fell to the ground and trembled in fear. In the depths of the ocean, 2 balls of yellow light suddenly appeared in the dark trench. Upon closer inspection, they were actually a pair of giant eyes. How can such an existence exist on Firmament Star? I'm afraid this woman was not an ordinary emperor when she was alive. Even in that place, she would be one of the best. A series of murmurs echoed in the ocean before everything returned to normal. On the unnamed island, after the headless woman had vented her anger, she reached out and grabbed at the void, tearing a pitch-black spatial rift. The woman walked into the rift and disappeared without a trace. What kind of existence is that? How can it be so terrifying? That's one of the 7 great strange stories in Firmament Star. I thought it was fake, but who knew that the headless woman really existed? The sages outside the island were still traumatized. It was at this moment that they realized that the high and mighty sages could one day be like ants in front of other existences. There were too many mysteries and unknowns in this world. Even the sages could not know everything. At that moment, Chu Kuangren had already left the unnamed island with the Black Heaven's second and third forefathers using the Great Shift Talisman and arrived at a mountain range hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. We should be safe now. Chu Kuangren looked around. Kid, you have quite a few tricks up your sleeve. The Black Heaven's second and third forefathers were amazed. Even a sage who was proficient in spatial Dao might not be able to teleport hundreds of thousands of kilometers in an instant. I obtained this talisman by chance, but it can only be used once. Chu Kuangren looked at the Great Shift Talisman that had turned into ashes in his hand and shook his head. He did not feel that it was a waste. Ever since he got the Lucky Halo, he had obtained quite a number of good items in the past year or so, including some trump cards for escaping. The Great Shift Talisman was just one of them. Alright, let's return to the Black Heaven sect first, Chu Kuangren said. He took out the elusive mirage and returned to the Black Heaven sect. While he was back, the firmament star was not at peace. First, the appearance of the headless woman on the unnamed island had caused an uproar. All the sages were shocked when they heard the news. Second, the news that Chu Kuangren had obtained an emperor-grade treasure on the unnamed island had spread, and many people coveted the treasures that he had. Unfortunately, due to his powerful strength, no one dared to make a move on him. On the other hand, the Scaled tribe that lived in the ocean was furious. The headless woman had killed several Scaled tribe sages and more than half of the tens of millions of Scaled tribe members. What made the Scaled tribe king tremble with anger was the fact that the Sea King's trident, the symbol of the Scaled tribe's supreme authority, had been taken away by an outsider. No, I must get the trident back. Black Heaven sect, I must make them pay for this. A cold light shot out from the Scaled tribe king's eyes. Chapter 333. Chu Kuangren and the two forefathers soon returned to the Black Heaven sect. Once the two forefathers returned, they immediately went back to their cottage in the depths of the Black Heaven sect as if they did not care about the sect's affairs. They were more than happy to leave everything to Chu Kuangren. It's great that I'm retired. Why don't I just work for a few years and find an excuse to retire as well? Chu Kuangren thought to himself. On the surface, the Sage Orthodoxy sect leaders usually retired after ascension, so it seemed like his own retirement was not far away. It was just ascension after all. It was not that difficult. As Chu Kuangren thought about it, he arrived at the Longevity Hall. Greetings, sect leader. Elder Rian bowed respectfully. Yo, Elder Rian seems to be in a good mood. Chu Kuangren saw the smile on Elder Rian's face. Elder Rian has been in a good mood for the past few days. Those who don't know better would think that she has found her Mr. Right. One of the elders beside her laughed. Chu Kuangren was quite surprised too. Was the 1,000-year-old virgin Rian about to have sex? Screw you, sect leader. These few days, the Taoist School of Dedication and the Thunder Falcon tribe have sent over their soul stones. However, some of them have used some treasures as collateral. This is the bill. Elder Rian rolled her eyes before she took out a scroll and handed it to Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren took it and looked at it. It's not bad. I'll leave this matter to you. Just do as you see fit. Alright. I'll be in closed-door meditation for a few days to prepare to ascend to the Honorable Supreme Realm. Don't disturb me if there's nothing important. Sect leader, you're preparing to ascend to the Honorable Supreme Realm? Yes. Chu Kuangren nodded and sighed. The other Sage Orthodoxy sect leaders are all Honorable Supremes, but I'm only an Honorable. If I don't break through to the Honorable Supreme Realm soon, I'll become a laughing stock. The elders could not help but sweat when they heard him say that. Sect leader, can we stop joking? You're an Honorable, but you've killed many sages. Who in this world would dare to treat you as an ordinary Honorable? Then wouldn't killing an Honorable Supreme be child's play for you? I can't take it anymore. I need to ascend to the Honorable Supreme Realm as soon as possible so I can retire after ascension, Chu Kuangren said. The elders were getting anxious. Don't. Sect leader, we're not in a hurry to transcend the tribulation. I think it's good that you continue to be the sect leader. That's right. It's only been a few years and he's already in such a hurry to retire. The shortest tenure of the other sect leaders was also a few hundred years. They were more than happy to see Chu Kuangren become the sect leader. He had only been the sect leader for slightly more than a year, but he had already raised the Black Heaven sect's foundation and strength by more than a level. Everything else aside, just the spirit stones won from this championship alone was enough to cover the Black Heaven sect's expenses for decades. In a few more years the Black Heaven sect would definitely be able to take off. You old fellows, it seems like you can't wait for me to sit in the position of sect master until the end. Don't worry, I won't retire so easily until there's no suitable successor, Chu Kuangren said helplessly. It seemed that he still had a long way to go before he retired. At the very least, he would have to wait for Nangong Huang and the others to grow to the point where they could shoulder the responsibility. No matter what, it would take at least a few decades or a century. After discussing with Elder Rian and the others for a while, Chu Kuangren then returned to the Towering Heaven Palace to go into closed-door meditation. Before he went into closed-door meditation, he first took out the few items that he had obtained from the unnamed island. Aside from the headless lady's head, there was also the white-haired man's corpse, a bronze mirror and a wooden box. The bronze mirror was in a damaged state. It was originally an Emperor weapon, but now it could not even unleash the power of a Boundary Emperor weapon. This must be the Emperor weapon mentioned in the diary, the green primordial mirror. It was destroyed by the headless lady. Chu Kuangren looked at the cracked bronze mirror in his hand and could not help but be shocked. This was an Emperor weapon after all. To be able to destroy an Emperor weapon to such an extent, the headless lady's strength was just too terrifying. Moreover, her head had been chopped off, so she could not unleash her full strength. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the headless lady was when she was alive. An emperor was indeed earth-shattering. After keeping the green primordial mirror, Chu Kuangren did not immediately refine it. Instead he looked at the wooden box. When he was on the unnamed island, he was afraid that the headless lady would come looking for him, so he was in a hurry to leave. He opened the wooden box. Inside there was a scroll. A scroll. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up because the scroll in front of him was exactly the same as the one he found in the Sky Emperor Palace. He opened the scroll and saw that there was also an Emperor technique inside. My luck is pretty good. I just found out about the existence of the 9 major scrolls from the Sky Emperor Palace, and now I've obtained one of them. I wonder what kind of Emperor technique this is, Chu Kuangren thought. He did not immediately study it. Instead he put it away. Let's wait until I become an honorable supreme first, Chu Kuangren thought. He took out some medicinal pills which were prepared for his breakthrough. Besides that, he also had the sage-grade medicine he obtained from the unnamed island. Coupled with the few sage corpses in the Avarice dimension, he should be able to break through this time no matter how solid his foundation was. Even if it was not enough, he still had a Boundary Emperor's corpse. When he refined it, he would probably be able to ascend in one go. Time passed and soon 3 days had passed. On this day, a powerful aura erupted from the Towering Heaven Palace that Chu Kuangren was in, and it quickly spread throughout the entire Black Heaven sect. The Black Heaven sect's sword mountain gently trembled and let out a sword cry. Deep within the Black Heaven sect, the Black Heaven sect's second forefather and the others sensed it. This little guy has broken through to become an honorable supreme. He'll probably ascend to become a sage soon. When that time comes, we can't keep calling him little guy. Not bad. The sages were relieved. Meanwhile, inside the Towering Heaven Palace, after Chu Kuangren had successfully broken through to become an honorable supreme, he then looked at the white-robed man's corpse with a thoughtful look. Looks like I won't need this Boundary Emperor's body for now. I'll keep it and use it when I break through to become a sage, Chu Kuangren thought to himself. The blood and flesh essences that could be refined from a Boundary Emperor's body were definitely terrifying. It could help him to form a powerful sage's foundation, but it was still a long way from becoming a supreme sage's foundation. Therefore, before that, Chu Kuangren had to accumulate as many resources as he could so that he could form a supreme sage's foundation in one go. It's a pity that the gluttonous devouring technique is only a sage ruler technique, so it can't refine an emperor's body. Otherwise, if I refine that lady's head, I might really be able to form a supreme sage's foundation in one go, Chu Kuangren murmured. Then he kept the white-haired man's corpse into his yin and yang ring. Then he took out 2 halberds. One was black while the other was silver. They were the Heaven's halberd and the trident halberd that he obtained from the Scaled Tribe's young master. When the 2 halberds stood side by side, the aura they emitted was somewhat similar, as if they were from the same origin. Could this Boundary Emperor weapon of the Lu Kingdom be from the Scaled Tribe? Chu Kuangren pondered. After that, he studied them for a while and did not find anything special about them, so he threw the 2 halberds back into his yin and yang ring. Finally, he began to study the Emperor technique recorded on the scroll. Chapter 334. Compared to the heart-piercing finger scroll that Chu Kuangren studied in the Sky Emperor Palace, This scroll did not contain that strange evil energy. It seemed that this had something to do with the Emperor technique recorded in the scroll. The heart-piercing finger was an Emperor technique that targeted one's Taoist core. With its evil energy, it would affect both the user and the target. With the experience of studying the heart-piercing finger, Chu Kuangren's speed of studying the scroll was much faster this time. It only took him 6 hours. Comprehending an Emperor technique in 6 hours? If word of this got out, it would be ridiculous. Even an emperor would not have such terrifying comprehension abilities. However, for Chu Kuangren, who possessed the meditational clarity of clarity and the transcendent coalescence Taoist physique, he managed to achieve the impossible. Raging God's Fist. This emperor technique was called the Raging God's Fist. This was a fist technique, an extremely terrifying fist technique. It focused on anger, and the more enraged the user was, the more terrifying the power of this emperor technique would be. After studying this emperor technique, Chu Kuangren felt a surge of anger in his heart. He wanted nothing more than to pick a fight with someone on the spot. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. With the rock-steady Taoist core, he quickly suppressed his anger. After studying the Emperor technique, Chu Kuangren stretched his body. He then opened the fantasy roulette and began the day's gacha. Congratulations, host. You have obtained the Starlight Grade Water Aversion Pearl. Water Aversion Pearl? Chu Kuangren looked at the item's information. As the name suggested, it was a pearl that allowed its user to walk freely underwater and was even immune to water attacks to a certain extent. This is a pretty good treasure. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. He was quite satisfied with this gacha. Treasures with special functions like this might come in handy in the future, just like the restriction talisman. After breaking through to the Honorable Supreme, Chu Kuangren stayed in the Black Heaven sect for the rest of his time. He did not go out to stir up trouble. If he was not discussing the sect's internal affairs with Elder Rian and the others, he would look for the Fairfrost Sage to discuss the expansion of the Spirit Rice Plantation. When he was free, he would gather Nangong Huang and the others to train them. Time passed by in an orderly manner. Chu Kuangren's foundation in the Supreme Honorable Realm was getting stronger and stronger, while Nangong Huang, Murong Xian, and the others' improvements were also getting more obvious. What surprised him was that Nangong Huang, Murong Xian, and the others did not complain during the training. They all gritted their teeth and persevered as if they were holding back their anger. This made Chu Kuangren a little embarrassed to use his full strength. Aside from Nangong Huang, Murong Xian, and the others, Lan Yu had also volunteered to join the training camp. Moreover, she worked even harder than the others. Chu Kuangren could not help but feel sorry for her every time he saw her covered in wounds. Lil Bing, do you think Lan Yu, Nangong Huang and the others suffered some kind of shock? They suddenly became so hardworking? On top of the mountain peak, Chu Kuangren could not help but feel a little confused as he watched Lan Yu and the others fight with his sword Qi clone. Everyone wants to become stronger, Lil Bing said. Nonsense. Of course, you're training so hard to become stronger, but why are you suddenly so obsessed with becoming stronger? Chu Kuangren rolled his eyes and said, Sect leader, I'm afraid you'll have to ask them themselves. Lil Bing smiled faintly. She had been training with Lan Yu and the others for the past few days, so she could roughly guess what everyone was thinking. It was nothing more than the incident in the first city that had given them a lot of shock. They wanted to catch up to Chu Kuangren's footsteps and fight alongside him in the future. At least they would not always be behind Chu Kuangren, watching him take on everything alone and face all his enemies. Forget it, it's always a good thing to want to become stronger. I won't ask any more. Chu Kuangren thought about it and then ignored them. In fact, he was happy to see Nangong Huang and the others in their current state. He needed them to grow faster so that he could retire with peace of mind when they were able to take charge. Chu Kuangren felt a lot more relaxed when he thought about how he could quickly get rid of the heavy burden of the sect leader and not have to deal with a bunch of internal affairs. By the way, Master, tomorrow is the Inner Disciple Grand Tournament. Are you interested in watching? Lil Bing suddenly said. The Inner Disciple Grand Tournament. I just discussed it with Elder Rian and the others yesterday, so there's no harm in watching. Chu Kuangren smiled faintly. The Inner Disciple Grand Tournament was a common event in many orthodoxies. It was nothing more than gathering a group of inner disciples together and then competing against each other. The winner would win the prize and become a true disciple. The next day, there was a sea of people in front of the Black Heaven sect's Longevity Hall. Countless disciples gathered together for the Inner Disciple Grand Tournament. As the Black Heaven sect's foundation improved, the value of such a tournament also increased. The disciples selected were the best of the best, and the worst among the true disciples who could become true disciples were at least nascent soul realm. Moreover, becoming a true disciple was not without worries. Every once in a while, a true disciple would hold a competition, and the true disciple with the worst ranking would be demoted to an inner disciple. Only then could the Black Heaven sect's disciples maintain a competitive relationship forever. They would be honed and improved through competition. As time passed, the Inner Disciple Grand Tournament went on for 3 days. In the end, the Inner Disciple Grand Tournament selected 4 winners. These 4 people would also receive rewards and be promoted to true disciples. As usual, Chu Kuangren, as the sect leader, had to go up on stage to award the 4 disciples their rewards and encourage them. When Chu Kuangren arrived at the Longevity Hall, a group of outer and inner disciples were already waiting for him. When they saw him, they were extremely excited. Look, it's the sect leader. Wow, the sect leader is getting more and more handsome. No matter how many times I look at his face, I won't get tired of it. Yeah, he's so handsome. I heard that the sect leader caused a ruckus in the first city for the sake of the Taoists. He even forced the first city in Sky Emperor Palace to publicly apologize. He's really amazing. Not only is the sect leader handsome, but he's also very strong. If only I could get close to him. I'm so envious of those 4 inner disciples. They can stand so close to the sect leader. Outside the Longevity Hall, the disciples were in a heated discussion. An elder stood up and looked at the disciples with a stern expression. He shouted, "Silence." Only then did the crowd gradually quiet down. Then, Chu Kuangren awarded the 4 disciples who won the Inner Disciple Grand Tournament. Inner Disciple Hua Ruyu, please come up on stage to receive your award. Chu Kuangren said calmly. A girl in a red dress walked up. Perhaps she was too excited, but when she approached Chu Kuangren, her face was flushed red. My God, the sect leader is only 1 step away from me now. He smells so good. Chu Kuangren did not know what Hua Ruyu was thinking. He handed the award to her and smiled. I hope you'll continue to work hard in the future. Yes, sect leader. I'll definitely work hard. Hua Ruyu said excitedly. Alright, good. Chu Kuangren used his eye of revelation to look at her. She was quite talented, and her growth potential was considered top-notch among the disciples. Then he gave the other 3 disciples their awards. When he was giving the award to a disciple named Zhao Tianlong, he squinted his eyes and revealed a strange look. Chapter 335. Zhao Tianlong, an inner disciple of the Black Heaven sect. He concealed his identity as a spy from the underworld of the demonic Tao. He was once a perfected nascent soul cultivator, but his current cultivation is at the mid-stage nascent soul realm. It is suspected that he used some kind of secret technique to cripple his own cultivation and cultivate a supreme technique. Chu Kuangren looked at the young disciple in front of him who was staring at him with a face full of passion, and he could not help but reveal a hint of playfulness in his eyes. Weren't the demonic path disciples afraid of him to death? How could this guy look at him with such worship? TSK, his acting skills are not bad. Chu Kuangren smiled and gave them their prizes. He then said calmly, work hard, all of you are the future of the Black Heaven sect. Zhao Tianlong nodded excitedly. Yes, sect master. Humph. The future of the Black Heaven sect? Chu Kuangren, you would never have guessed that I'm a spy from the Underworld Palace. One day I will dig out all the secrets of the Black Heaven sect and send them back to the headquarters to kill you all. At that time I will be the greatest hero of the demonic path. Ah. Thinking up to this point, an excited expression appeared on Zhao Tianlong's face. In the eyes of others, this was just him feeling happy that he was about to become a successor disciple. Thus, he did not think too much about it. After awarding the prizes to the few disciples, Chu Kuangren walked into the Longevity Hall and said to Elder Rian, give me Zhao Tianlong's information later. Once the crowd has dispersed, bring him over. Elder Rian was taken aback. Is there a problem with this person? Yes. Alright, I understand. Elder Rian nodded. Not long after, a document appeared in Chu Kuangren's hands. It was the entire process of Zhao Tianlong's entry into the sect. According to the information, Zhao Tianlong's cultivation was only at the Foundation Establishment realm when he first joined the sect. In just over a year, he had advanced from the Foundation Establishment realm to the Nascent Soul realm. The speed of his advancement far surpassed that of his peers. When Chu Kuangren used the Eye of Revelation to observe the other party, it showed that the other party's original cultivation level was at the Nascent Soul realm, but he later used some kind of secret technique to destroy his own cultivation level and start from scratch. TSK, in order to conceal his identity as a disciple of the demonic Tao, he sacrificed quite a lot. He was originally at the peak of the nascent soul stage, so it was quite fast for him to cultivate again. It's not strange for him to reach the nascent soul stage from qi condensation in a short year. The people of hell might make for a good pawn, Chu Kuangren muttered. After a while, Zhao Tianlong arrived at the longevity hall. Deep down he was secretly delighted. Could it be that Chu Kuangren had summoned him alone to give him a special reward? Come to think of it, Chu Kuangren had managed to advance from the foundation establishment realm to the mid-nascent soul realm in just a year. No matter which orthodoxy he was in, he would be the top sky pride. It was reasonable for Chu Kuangren to value him. What was he going to reward him with? Pills, weapons, could it be some kind of saint technique? Zhao Tianlong felt a little excited just thinking about it. The newly promoted direct disciple, Zhao Tianlong, greets the sect master. And you're welcome. May I know why the sect leader has suddenly summoned me? It's like this. Now that you've become a true disciple, you're now qualified to comprehend the 12 sage techniques of our Black Heaven sect. Have you decided which one you want to comprehend? Chu Kuangren chuckled. Sure enough, Chu Kuangren is secretly trying to promote me. He's even planning to open the back door for me and secretly give me pointers. Zhao Tianlong thought complacently. Please give me pointers, sect leader. Not pointers, but I'm a little curious. Do the Underworld Palace have more sage techniques or the Black Heaven sect? As soon as he said that, Zhao Tianlong's face turned extremely pale. His hands and feet turned cold and he could not help but tremble. His initial complacency vanished in an instant and was replaced by a great fear that shrouded him from head to toe. Sect leader, what are you talking about? He said with a trembling voice. What, you don't know? I thought that since you've done so much for the Underworld Palace, crippling your own cultivation and infiltrating my Black Heaven sect as a spy, the Underworld Palace would at least reward you with a sage technique. Don't tell me that the Underworld Palace is so stingy that they wouldn't even give you such a reward? Chu Kuangren sat in the longevity hall and said playfully. After hearing his words, Zhao Tianlong's body went limp and he immediately knelt on the ground. His body could not help but tremble. He wanted to say something but his throat seemed to be stuck so he could not utter a single word. What, you don't want to argue anymore? Sect leader, please spare my life. Zhao Tianlong begged for mercy, but it was as if he had used up all the energy in his body. His body was covered in a layer of cold sweat. Tell me, how many times have you sent news to the Underworld Palace in the past year? What kind of news? Chu Kuangren asked calmly. Zhao Tianlong was terrified. He did not expect Chu Kuangren to see through his identity the first time he met him. Not only that, Chu Kuangren even knew that he was from the Underworld Palace and that he had crippled his own cultivation. This was not as simple as him giving himself away. He even suspected that Chu Kuangren had planted spies in the Underworld Palace, and the higher-ups at that too. Otherwise, how could Chu Kuangren know so much about him? A total of 2 times. The first was when I first arrived at the Black Heaven sect to report to the Underworld Palace, and the second was to report on the Black Heaven sect's basic situation, including the Sword Gauntlet, the Gravity Training Grounds and other cultivation grounds. Zhao Tianlong did not dare to hide anything and told Chu Kuangren everything. Beside him, Elder Rian listened with a gloomy expression. Zhao Tianlong did not divulge much information, so it did not affect the Black Heaven sect too much. However, this was only because he had only been in the Black Heaven sect for slightly more than a year. What if he was given more time? Not to mention that he had already become a true disciple and was qualified to come into contact with the true secrets of the Black Heaven sect. For example, sage techniques, spiritual rice farming, the marrow cleansing pool, and so on. If these were to spread, Elder Rian could not imagine how much of an impact it would have on the Black Heaven sect. Sect leader, it's my fault for letting a spy infiltrate the Black Heaven sect. Please punish me, sect leader. Elder Rian said guiltily. Well, you can't be blamed for this. The Underworld Palace is cunning and cunning. Since that person destroyed his own cultivation base, it's only natural that you couldn't detect it. Just pay more attention from now on, Chu Kuangren said. If not for his eye of revelation, he would not have noticed it either. Sect leader, what should we do about Zhao Tianlong? A cold glint flashed across Elder Rian's eyes. When Zhao Tianlong heard that, he quickly kowtowed and begged for mercy. Please spare my life, sect leader. I will definitely give my all for the Black Heaven sect in the future. I swear that I will never contact the underworld again. No, I want you to continue being a spy. Chu Kuangren suddenly uttered something shocking. Astonished expressions appeared on the faces of Elder Rian and Zhao Tianlong. I want you to continue being a spy. Of course, We'll decide what information you send back to the Underworld Palace. Chu Kuangren smiled. Elder Rian's eyes lit up when she heard that. She understood what Chu Kuangren meant. The Underworld Palace had planted a spy in the Black Heaven sect, but the Black Heaven sect had used that spy to send false information to the Underworld Palace to mislead them. What a great idea, sect leader. Elder Rian praised. Zhao Tianlong breathed a sigh of relief when he heard that. Was it not just a spy from the Underworld Palace becoming a spy for the Black Heaven sect? To him it was nothing. As long as he could survive. Chapter 336. Then Chu Kuangren took out some poison that he had refined in his spare time and fed it to Zhao Tianlong. With that, the spy was completely under his control. The fact that the Underworld Palace had planted spies in the Black Heaven sect had taught Elder Rian and the others a lesson. Hence, they conducted a thorough investigation of their disciples, and with the help of Chu Kuangren's Eye of Revelation, they managed to find a few of them. However, compared to Zhao Tianlong, these disciples were only outer and inner disciples, so they did not have much access to the sect's resources. Chu Kuangren did not let anyone deal with these people. Instead, he ordered Elder Rian to keep an eye on them, waiting for them to come in handy. Time passed. A few days had passed. On this day, Elder Rian went to find Chu Kuangren with a serious expression. Sect leader, the Black Heaven sect's affiliated sects along the coast were attacked yesterday. They suffered heavy casualties, Elder Rian said. Who did it? The Scale Tribe. They said that if you don't hand over the Trident Halberd and the Emperor-grade treasures from the unnamed island, they will kill 100,000 people every day until all the affiliated sects of the Black Heaven sect are wiped out. Elder Rian gritted her teeth and said. Upon hearing that, Chu Kuangren took a deep breath, and a cold glint flashed across his eyes. Where are the Scale Tribe now? The coastal region, the Snowstorm sect. Got it. I'll go there myself, Chu Kuangren said. He walked out of the Longevity Hall, and his figure turned into a stream of light and disappeared. The news of the Scaled Tribe provoking the Black Heaven sect spread like wildfire, and more than half of the orthodoxies in Firmament Star had received the news. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen. The Scaled Tribe was the overlord of the ocean. Although their resources could not be compared to the entire human race, they were still more powerful than any sage orthodoxy. After so many years in the ocean, countless sages had been born. Chu Kuangren was not a sage, but he was more powerful than one. In just a few years, he had risen with an unstoppable momentum, becoming the most dazzling legend in Firmament Star for hundreds of thousands of years. The battle between the two must be extraordinary. Azure Dragon Domain, the coastal region of the Snowstorm sect. The corpses of more than 100,000 Snowstorm sect disciples and civilians were piled on the coast, emitting a strong stench of blood. Beside the countless corpses, there were several huge, upright sea beasts that were constantly devouring these corpses. Not far away, the upper echelon elders and sect leader of the Snowwind sect were all shackled and locked in cages. They watched this scene with bloodshot eyes. Look, this is the consequence of going against the Scaled Tribe. At the side of the cage, a Scaled Tribe general in azure armor smiled coldly and said, "Don't worry, it won't just be the Snowstorm sect. As long as Chu Kuangren doesn't hand over the item, we'll continue to kill until we've wiped out all of the Black Heaven sect's affiliated forces. I'd like to see how long Chu Kuangren can endure this. Sect leader will never let you off," the Snow Wind sect leader said with his eyes wide open. That would be great. I'd like to see what kind of storm Chu Kuangren can stir up. Our Scale Tribe is a big clan and we live deep in the ocean. No matter how strong Chu Kuangren is, do you think he can dive into the ocean to settle the score with us? The seabed is the Scale Tribe's territory. The Scaled Tribe general laughed out loud. Compared to the other sage orthodoxies of the four domains, the Scaled Tribe was not afraid of Chu Kuangren at all. To them, so what if Chu Kuangren was powerful? He was still a land creature after all, and the Scaled Tribe lived deep in the ocean. In the ocean, no one could do anything to the Scaled Tribe. A night passed. The Scaled Tribe general looked at the rising sun and sneered. It's the second day and Chu Kuangren still hasn't shown up. Go to the Snowwind sect's territory and capture another 100,000 people to feed to the oceanic beasts. Yes. A group of Scaled Tribe soldiers rushed towards the city not far away. The Snowwind sect leader and the others who witnessed this scene yelled, "Stop! Come at us if you have the guts." The Scaled Tribe general said, "That won't do. You're the Snowwind sect leader and elders. I want you to watch how we kill the people and disciples that you've been protecting. Just like Chu Kuangren. If he doesn't hand over the item, the Scaled Tribe will watch how his affiliated forces are slaughtered. B*****. The Snowwind sect leader roared, but there was nothing he could do. A large group of Scaled Tribe soldiers rushed towards the city. Most of these Scaled Tribe soldiers were covered in scales of different colors, and some even had horns and other organs. They looked extremely ferocious. The people in the city could not help but fall into despair as they looked at the overwhelming number of Scaled Tribe soldiers. Some of the cultivators gritted their teeth and stepped up to the city walls in an attempt to protect the people in the city. However, their strength was too insignificant in the face of the tens of thousands of Scaled Tribe soldiers. Wah! An infant in the arms of a woman seemed to have sensed something and started to cry. The woman could not help but hug the infant tighter. Someone please save us. The Scaled Tribe soldiers had arrived at the city walls and were about to enter the city. The cultivators on the city walls were also prepared to fight to the death. At that moment, a purple sword ray suddenly appeared from afar. The sword ray was as vast as a torrent, covering the entire sky. The sword ray swept across the sky above countless people and rushed into the Scaled Tribe army. Under the attack of this sword ray, the Scaled Tribe soldiers, be it Nascent Soul or Paradise Realm cultivators, or even the Battle Monarch Realm cultivators, could not resist it at all. They were instantly turned into blood mist and exploded. In just an instant, tens of thousands of Scaled Tribe soldiers had vanished into thin air, never to be seen again. Far away, amidst the surging sea of clouds, a deafening roar was heard. A large patch of red light floated and dyed the sky red. A blood-red godly phoenix soared into the sky, emitting waves of auspicious chi. On top of the godly phoenix, there was an otherworldly figure dressed in a wide-sleeved white robe with a magnificent longsword strapped to his waist. The godly phoenix in the sea of clouds looked like a deity. It's the sect leader. It's the Black Heaven sect leader, Chu Kuangren. He's here. We're saved. Someone recognized Chu Kuangren and could not help but cheer. The woman hugged the infant and cried tears of joy. The cultivators breathed a sigh of relief. Not far away, a few sea beasts on the shore sensed the godly phoenix's aura and let out a low growl of agitation. The Scaled Tribe Great General's eyes narrowed as he said solemnly, "So he's Chu Kuangren? His aura is extraordinary indeed." Chu Kuangren flew to the sky above the city. With Taoist rhymes emanating from his body, he cast the spring breeze healing technique and a gust of wind swept across the entire city. Some of the cultivators and citizens who were injured in the Scaled Tribe's invasion had recovered. They looked at Chu Kuangren with fervent gazes as if they were devout believers who had met their god. Once that was done, Chu Kuangren rode the godly phoenix to the Scaled Tribe Great General and said, "Let them go and accept your death. Haha, you're indeed the strongest sky pride of the continent. You're indeed extraordinary. We can let them go if you hand over the item, and the Scaled Tribe will never invade again." The Scaled Tribe Great General laughed. "You have no right to negotiate with me." "Hey, is that so?" The Scaled Tribe Great General sneered and waved his hand. Then, a few Scaled Tribe soldiers beside him walked towards the Snowstorm sect leader and the others. "If you don't agree, I'll kill them right now." "Try me?" Chu Kuangren said calmly. An invisible force field spread out with him as the center. It was his Battle Monarch domain. Under the domain, the Scaled Tribe soldiers who were near the Snowstorm sect leader and the elders were all pressed to the ground, unable to move. "What?" The Scaled Tribe Great General's expression changed. In a flash, he charged towards the Snowstorm sect leader and the others despite the pressure from the Battle Monarch domain. He wanted to capture them as hostages to force Chu Kuangren into submission. However, a ray of light suddenly flashed past him and arrived in front of him. Then, a pale palm enlarged in front of him and strangled him with an unstoppable force. "I told you, you have no right to negotiate." Chapter 337. I've said it before. You have no right to negotiate with me. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. His mountain-like fingers gripped the Scaled Tribe Great General's neck, rendering him immobile. His eyes were filled with horror as he stared at Chu Kuangren. After all, he was also an honorable supreme, yet he did not even have the ability to resist Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren's strength was far beyond his imagination. He knew he was no match for Chu Kuangren, but he did not expect to be defeated so badly. Die. Chu Kuangren lifted the Scaled Tribe Great General with one hand. His eyes flashed and with a slight force from his fingers, a terrifying force erupted. With a loud bang, the Scaled Tribe General exploded into a cloud of blood mist. It was as if he could crush an honorable supreme like a child. Then he unleashed a palm attack, and a few sea beasts on the shore were effortlessly smashed into pieces. Chu Kuangren's unparalleled strength shocked the scaled tribe. Meanwhile, the godly phoenix Lil Red hovered in the air and spat out balls of fire onto the scaled tribe soldiers, burning them into ashes. When Chu Kuangren came to the side of the cage, he formed a sword finger and several surges of sword chi shot out, tearing the cage apart. The shackles on the snowstorm sect leader and the others were also shattered one by one, allowing them to regain their freedom. "Thank you, sect leader," the snowstorm sect leader said with a fist salute. He then looked at the hundreds of thousands of corpses on the shore with anger and sorrow in his eyes. Chu Kuangren said, "I'll take care of the scaled tribe. I'll leave this to you guys. I'll have the godly phoenix stay behind to assist you. Also, the Black Heaven sect will send some people here." "Yes, thank you, sect leader. You're welcome." Chu Kuangren stared at the raging waves of the sea with a cold glint in his eyes. He grabbed a scaled tribe soldier who was still alive and said coldly, "Bring me to the scaled tribe. I want to see your king." Yes. The scaled tribe soldier did not dare to resist and nodded in fear. At the bottom of the sea, in a magnificent palace, the scaled tribe was holding a banquet. Everyone who attended the banquet were famous generals of the scaled tribe. There were even some chiefs of the scaled tribe. Just like the human race, the scaled tribe also had many branches. The most powerful scaled tribe was currently in power, the Golden Scaled Tribe. The Golden Scaled Tribe became the royal family of the Scaled Tribe and got the surname Bei Ming. The current king of the Scaled Tribe was named North Sea Peng. At the banquet, mermaids danced, clam spirits served wine, and the guests chatted merrily. It was a flourishing scene. At this moment, a Scaled Tribe member suddenly rushed in, terrified. Reporting to the king, General Bai Lin is dead. The Scaled Tribe members were shocked. General Bai Lin was a famous general among the Scaled Tribe. His sudden death had shocked many of the Scaled Tribe members. "Okay, I got it." The Scaled King was not surprised at all. Instead, he said, "Have Huang Lin's 13 generals get ready and continue to attack the Black Heaven sect's affiliated forces along the coast. As long as Chu Kuangren doesn't hand over the Trident Halberd and the Emperor-grade treasures, kill him until he hands them over." Hearing this, many Scaled Tribe members looked at each other. One of the Scaled Tribe elders stood up and said, "My king, isn't it a little too risky to fight Chu Kuangren? Adventure? No matter how powerful that Chu Kuangren is, do you think he would dare to dive deep into the ocean and cause trouble in our Scaled Tribe's territory?" The Scaled King said, amused. He was confident that he would win this battle. The Scaled Tribe lived deep in the ocean. Even if a sage were to come here, their combat strength would be limited by half. The Scaled Tribe members could unleash 100% of their strength in the ocean. Since ancient times, no one had ever been able to fight the Scaled Tribe underwater. The Scaled Tribe members pondered for a while and agreed that it made sense. The banquet continued. General Bai Lin's death seemed to be an insignificant interlude to the crowd. After a brief discussion, it was over. Just as everyone was laughing and chatting, boom! The entire palace suddenly shook violently. What's going on? Why would there be such a sudden tremor? Could it be an earthquake? That's impossible. This hasn't happened in so many years. Why would there be an earthquake all of a sudden? Send someone to check it out. The Scaled Tribe members looked around frantically. At this moment, an elder suddenly appeared beside the Scaled King. The Scaled King was surprised to see this elder. "Elder, why are you here?" This elder was an elder of the Scaled Tribe Palace. He was also a sage. He stared out of the palace with an unfathomable gaze. "He's here. Order all Scaled Tribe cultivators below the honorable realm to leave the palace immediately. As for the others, stay here and help me fend off the enemy." "Who's here?" The Scaled King was a little confused. "Do I need to tell you who you've offended?" The Scaled Tribe elder glanced at the Scaled King and said calmly. The Scaled King's eyes narrowed. Could it be Chu Kuangren? Why would he dare to come to the deep ocean? There are rumors in the outside world that the Black Heaven sect leader is a lunatic who can't be judged by common sense. It's not surprising that he would do anything, the Scaled Tribe elder said. The Scaled King was shocked at first, but then he sneered. Since he's here, that's good news. No one is better than the Scaled Tribe when it comes to fighting in the deep ocean. Today I'll make sure this person doesn't leave this place alive. The Scaled Tribe elder beside him also had a cold look in his eyes. At this moment, a Scaled Tribe soldier's corpse was tossed into the banquet hall. Outside the Scaled Tribe palace, a white-robed figure descended gracefully. There seemed to be an invisible barrier around his body that isolated the surrounding seawater from Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren was not affected in the slightest. It was the treasure that Chu Kuangren had obtained not long ago, the water evasion pearl. Chu Kuangren arrived at the magnificent scaled tribe palace. Sword-based Taoist rhymes circulated around his body, emanating an awe-inspiring aura. "Human, what are you doing here?" one of the scaled tribe generals yelled. "I'm here to be a fisherman and kill a few fishes," Chu Kuangren said indifferently. An incredibly sharp sword chi gushed out from his body, causing the surrounding seawater to rumble. The scaled tribe general who asked the question was instantly torn apart by the sword chi. The majestic sword chi swept out and filled half of the palace. The entire palace was shrouded in the threat of death. Wherever the sword chi went, the scaled tribe members were all killed. Their blood mixed with the seawater and instantly dyed the ocean within a 10-kilometer radius red. Countless scaled tribe members fled in terror. "Chu Kuangren, how dare you!" the scaled king roared. Then, a black trident appeared in his hand and he hurled it at Chu Kuangren. The trident carried a majestic torrent of water as if it was going to destroy everything in its path. It pierced through Chu Kuangren's barrier. The trident's power was so terrifying that it pierced through the barrier around Chu Kuangren. However, half of the torrent of water was dispelled. The remaining energy did not affect Chu Kuangren at all. He raised his hand to grab the trident, and the domineering trident was caught in his grip. It could no longer move forward. "The ones who are presumptuous are the scaled tribe." Chu Kuangren raised his hand and tossed the trident back. An even more terrifying and violent force was added to it. Upon seeing this, the scaled king stretched out his hand to grab the trident flying towards him. However, the force contained in the trident sent him flying. The trident slid out of his hand and finally pierced through his shoulder, pinning him to a pillar in the palace. Chapter 338. Clang. The trident pierced into one of the palace's pillars, creating a loud clanging sound. Meanwhile, the scaled king who was pinned to the pillar by Chu Kuangren, stared at Chu Kuangren with bloodshot eyes. A sense of humiliation welled up within him. After all, he was the king of the scaled tribe. The king that ruled over billions of scaled tribe members. Yet now, he was pinned to a pillar by Chu Kuangren in the royal palace under the watchful eyes of the public. How humiliating was that? B*****. "Chu Kuangren, I'm going to kill you. I must kill you," the scaled king roared in rage. Not far away, the scaled tribe elder's expression changed as he stared at Chu Kuangren gravely. After all, the scaled king was also a sage. In terms of combat strength, he was no weaker than the elder, yet he was pinned to the pillar by Chu Kuangren. Was Chu Kuangren really below the level of a sage? The same thought that all the sages who had seen Chu Kuangren before came to his mind. Chu Kuangren said, "The scaled tribe has invaded my Black Heaven sect and killed more than 100,000 people from my affiliated forces. The number of other casualties is uncountable. I shall settle this score with you today." Chu Kuangren, don't get too full of yourself. This is the deep ocean, not a place where you can do whatever you want, the scaled tribe elder said. Then he channeled the torrential force around him, and a majestic Taoist rhyme exploded towards Chu Kuangren. However, Chu Kuangren was not afraid at all. He swung the long sword in his hand and shattered the torrential force along with the Taoist rhyme. Even before the sword chi's power dissipated, it was already closing in on the scaled tribe elder. The violent energy made the scaled tribe elder's eyelids twitch. He then channeled his spiritual power and unleashed another palm attack. However, the terrifying sword chi still sent him flying hundreds of feet away. He crashed into the palace wall and spat out a mouthful of blood. How can this be? How can he have such combat strength? The scaled tribe elder was shocked and confused at the same time. After all, they were in the deep ocean. Even a human sage might not be able to unleash half of his combat strength in such an environment. Yet Chu Kuangren still had such terrifying strength. In fact, it was even more powerful than what he displayed on the unnamed island. Scaled tribe soldiers, kill him. At this moment, the scaled king, who had just pulled out the trident from the pillar, let out a loud roar. All the soldiers in the palace moved out at the same time. Not long after, the scaled tribe army, which numbered in the millions or even tens of millions, had surrounded Chu Kuangren in a tight circle. Then the scaled king took out something that looked like a horn and blew it. The sound of the horn echoed in the sea. All the sea beasts within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles rushed toward the palace as if they had been summoned. "Chu Kuangren, you must die here today," The Scaled King glared at Chu Kuangren with intense hatred in his eyes. When Chu Kuangren saw that, he sneered and said, "It's still too early to tell who will emerge victorious. Today I shall see for myself what you so-called rulers of the ocean are capable of." As soon as he finished speaking, he swung his sword in all directions. The violent sword chi instantly reaped the lives of a large number of Scaled Tribe soldiers. Right now he was a supreme honorable being, and his battle prowess was a level higher than when he was on the Nameless Island. Although he was now in the deep sea with the water evasion pearl, he could still unleash half of his battle prowess. Chu Kuangren held the Descendant Self-Sword in his hand. Wherever his sword chi went, countless Scaled Tribe soldiers would perish under his sword. In just a short while, hundreds of thousands of Scaled Tribe members had lost their lives, and their blood dyed the ocean red. Kill. Kill them all. Chu Kuangren, you're in the deep sea now. Even if you have a way to maintain your battle prowess, you're still one man with limited stamina. Let's see how you're going to outlast my endless Scaled Tribe army. The Scaled King roared, his eyes bloodshot. He was willing to sacrifice the lives of countless Scaled Tribe soldiers just to kill Chu Kuangren. It was not just to regain his pride. It was also to reclaim the trident in Chu Kuangren's hand and the Emperor-grade treasure that he had obtained on the Nameless Island. Come on, let's see who's going to win. Chu Kuangren faced the endless Scaled Tribe army with a cold expression. He waved the Descendant Self-Sword in his hand, and majestic sword chi gushed out continuously. Eventually he felt that this was too slow, so he took out the lingering Song Guqin. Chu Kuangren sat cross-legged in the middle of the army and plucked the strings with all 10 fingers. The terrifying Guqin Taoist rhymes caused the ocean to tumble and spread in all directions. The first 4 movements of the 8 celestial demonic chords were played consecutively. Although its power was slightly reduced in the ocean, it was still not something that the Scaled Tribe soldiers could withstand. Wherever the Guqin music passed, the Scaled Tribe soldiers exploded one after another. 30 kilometers. The maximum range of his Guqin music attack is 30 kilometers. Everyone retreat to 30 kilometers away and attack from afar. At that moment, one of the Scaled Tribe generals noticed the attack range of Chu Kuangren's Guqin music and began to arrange his troops. Countless Scaled Tribe soldiers retreated to 30 kilometers away, took out rows of specially made bows and arrows, and shot them at Chu Kuangren. However, Chu Kuangren remained calm despite the incoming rain of arrows. He plucked the Guqin strings with his fingers and a Guqin music spread out. The rain of arrows was instantly dispersed by the Guqin music. It did not hurt Chu Kuangren at all. 30 kilometers? My Guqin music is not that weak. Chu Kuangren said calmly. With 10 fingers plucking, the 5th movement, the 6th movement, and the 7th movement, Earthly Reverberation, were played consecutively. The terrifying Guqin music Taoist rhymes instantly increased, and the entire ocean became turbulent and turbulent. The Scaled Tribe soldiers who had retreated to 30 kilometers away were once again attacked by the Guqin music, and a large number of them were killed or injured. D***, this guy is using Guqin music at such a fast rate. Don't fight him head-on. Keep retreating and keep attacking from afar to force him to use up his spiritual power. The Scaled King said loudly. Chu Kuangren sneered at his words. Is this the demeanor of a ruler? Letting your subordinates die for you? Fight for me, die for me, this is the fate of every Scaled Tribe member. The Scaled King said loudly, the brave Scaled Tribe members are never afraid of battle. We live for battle and we die for battle. Kill. Kill, kill, kill. Countless Scaled Tribe soldiers roared with bloodshot eyes. Chu Kuangren noticed that when the Scaled King shouted, a formless Taoist rhyme emanated from his body. It affected the Scaled Tribe soldiers and made them fearless. Oh, a technique that bewitches the human mind. Interesting. A hint of surprise flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes as he activated his Eye of Revelation. He realized that the Scaled King was able to bewitch millions of Scaled Tribe soldiers not only because of his bewitching technique, but also because of his charisma as the ruler of the Scaled Tribe. With these two factors working together, the Scaled Tribe soldiers became fearless, allowing them to unleash extraordinary combat strength. Then I shall kill you first. Chu Kuangren's figure turned into a stream of light and dashed towards the Scaled King. He wanted to capture the leader first. However, he did not expect a blue barrier to suddenly appear around the Scaled King, blocking his path. A female Scaled Tribe member slowly walked out from behind the Scaled King. Her Taoist rhyme was extremely powerful, and it was no weaker than a great sage's. Chapter 339. You're not strong enough to break my cerulean aqua canopy. The woman from the scaled race said faintly with a proud look on her cold face. She was a great sage of the scaled race. Chu Kuangren smirked at that. How hard can it be to break your aqua canopy? Chu Kuangren's body suddenly emitted a blood-red flame, and his aura was instantly stabilized. With a slash of his sword, a dazzling sword ray instantly erupted, emitting a strong emperor's aura. The sword chi instantly tore through the cerulean aqua canopy. The female scaled tribe great sage's expression changed. Not good. She grabbed the scaled king and quickly retreated. However, the sword light followed him like a shadow, chasing him relentlessly. D*eminent water bloom. The scaled tribe great sage roared and unleashed a palm attack. Rays of light gathered in her palm before she blasted it towards the sword chi. With a loud explosion, the Taoist rhymes formed by the intertwining sword chi and palm chi spread outwards. The water around them tumbled, and the scaled king was forced to retreat by hundreds of meters. The scaled tribe great sage was also forced to retreat by hundreds of meters with a bloody wound on her palm. She looked at Chu Kuangren in fear. What a terrifying sword chi. And that blood-red flame, could it be the legendary 9 Deaths blazing blood art? How dare he use such a technique? What a lunatic. The scaled tribe great sage muttered. Elder Bei Mingfang, are you alright? The scaled king asked. I'm fine, but this person's combat strength is extraordinary. You're no match for him, scaled king. Please retreat, Bei Mingfang said solemnly. Rest assured, elder. The other elders are already on their way. All we need to do is delay him for a while. This person's combat strength may be strong, but he's single-handedly going against an entire army and using a forbidden technique like the 9 Deaths blazing blood art. He'll definitely die today. The scaled king said coldly. He had no intention of retreating and he looked like he had already won. Bei Mingfang pondered for a while and nodded in agreement. She looked at Chu Kuangren as if she was looking at a dead man. Single-handedly going against the entire scaled tribe. Only an idiot would do such a thing. Chu Kuangren's plan to capture the ringleader was thwarted by Bei Mingfang, and the million-strong army had already surrounded them. Not only that, there were countless ferocious sea beasts coming from afar. Their combat strength was not any weaker than the 10 million scaled tribe army. Chu Kuangren could not help but laugh when he saw that. Haha, an army against a sea beast. What a unique battle. I would like to see how many more soldiers and sea beasts the scaled tribe has left for me to slaughter. His black hair fluttered in the wind as he plucked the zither strings with his fingers. Waves of majestic zither music Taoist rhymes spread out continuously, shaking the ocean for thousands of miles. The scaled tribe soldiers and the sea beasts were losing their lives one after another. The intensity of the battle had already dyed the seawater red. Sword chi transformation. As if he felt that he was still too slow, surges of sword chi shot out from Chu Kuangren's body and transformed into clones that charged in all directions. Sword chi clone, 8 celestial demonic quartz. In Chu Kuangren's hands, the 2 emperor techniques were unleashed to their fullest potential. They were the most terrifying offensive weapons in the world. The scaled tribe army and the oceanic beasts were being massacred by such an attack. On the other hand, Chu Kuangren was standing alone in the sea of blood. His white robe was so blindingly white that it was cruel to look at it. He had killed so many people, but his white robe was still spotless and his appearance was still otherworldly. It was as if killing a bunch of ants was not enough to make him feel the slightest bit of pity. Demon? This guy must be a demon. He's too scary. Ah, don't kill me. Finally. Under Chu Kuangren's merciless slaughter, many soldiers had broken down. They dropped their weapons and began to flee. Even the scaled king's bewitching technique was useless against them. Fear was the most primal instinct. The fear that Chu Kuangren instilled in them had far surpassed the effect of the scaled king's technique. Is this guy really human? Why is he still alive after using the 9 Deaths blazing blood art for so long? The scaled king and Bei Mingfang were also dumbfounded by what they saw. It was too terrifying. It was too horrifying. For Chu Kuangren to be able to fight to such an extent in the deep sea, the strength that he had shown them was too terrifying. At that moment, even the scaled king was feeling a little regretful. Perhaps he should not have provoked this guy in the first place. However, it was useless to think about that now. With the enemy before him, he had no way out. Boom. At that moment, a horrifying surge of Taoist rhyme erupted from afar. A palm chi rolled up the water current and struck towards Chu Kuangren. Another sage. Chu Kuangren sneered. Then he plucked the guqin strings with his fingers, and the third movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, the melodious chime erupted, shattering the palm chi. When the two forces collided, Chu Kuangren was pushed back a few meters. Behind him, another surge of Taoist rhyme erupted. Chu Kuangren held the guqin in his left hand and swung the sword in his right. With a clanging sound, the Kunwu sword slashed on the other blue sword. The collision between the two sword edges burst out streams of sword chi, which streaked across the water and exploded at the bottom of the sea, forming bubbles and then disappearing. Chu Kuangren looked at the sword-wielding figure. It was a handsome middle-aged scaled tribe man with a few golden scales on his cheeks. His body surged with a vast surge of sword-based Taoist rhyme. His sword Tao was far beyond any swordsman that Chu Kuangren had ever met. Even the Tempest Mountain, the Linghu clan, or even the Black Heaven sect might not be able to find such a swordsman. After the two swords collided, they were both pushed back. The scaled tribe's heritage is indeed extraordinary. Chu Kuangren was secretly surprised. After he had blocked the attacks from the two sages, a few more scaled tribe members had appeared around him. Each of them was a sage, and each of them alone could rival a million-strong scaled tribe army. A smile appeared on Chu Kuangren's face as he watched. The real show is about to begin. The scaled tribe army and the oceanic beasts were merely used by the scaled king to delay Chu Kuangren. These sages were the true means to kill him. Chu Kuangren, how dare you invade our scaled tribe and commit such a heinous crime? You deserve to die 1,000 times over. One of the sages questioned Chu Kuangren furiously as he looked at the corpses around him and the blood-stained seawater. Chu Kuangren could not help but laugh when he heard that. Heinous crime? Deserve to die 1,000 times over? Then what have the Black Heaven sect's people along the coastline done wrong? Now you're telling me that I deserve to die 1,000 times over? Don't you think that's ridiculous? You stole the scaled tribe's treasure, the Sea King's halberd. That's the reason they died. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself, the sect leader. The trident was lost to me by your scaled tribe's young master. If that's the reason they died, then I have nothing else to say. I can only apologize to them with the blood of the scaled tribe. For every person the scaled tribe killed, I'll kill 1,000 of your people. This time, the Black Heaven sect has lost more than 100,000 people, and the ones I've just killed are far from enough. Chapter 340. 10 times more was not enough. Even 100 times more was not enough. What Chu Kuangren wanted was 1,000 times more. If you kill one of my people, I'll kill 1,000 of your people. Chu Kuangren's words made the scaled tribe sages tremble in anger. Their Taoist rhymes circulated violently as they glared at Chu Kuangren, wishing they could cut him into 1,000 pieces. 1,000 lives for a single life. Chu Kuangren, once we arrive, you won't be able to kill a single one of us. One of the sages said angrily as he unleashed a palm attack towards Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren plucked the guqin strings, and a terrifying guqin music erupted. The guqin music and palm chi collided, and both sides were pushed back. The other scaled tribe sages had also made their moves. There were 7 scaled tribe sages present. Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation and scanned them one by one. He noticed that there were 2 5-step sages, 3 7-step sages, and the remaining 2 were great sages. Those 2 great sages were Bei Mingfang and the sword-wielding middle-aged scaled tribe sage called Bei Minghuan. These 2 were the biggest threats to Chu Kuangren. Bei Minghuan, in particular, had reached the 3-step great sage level, which was even stronger than the first prefect of the first city. In the past, such a lineup would have been troublesome to deal with. Unfortunately, I'm no longer the same as before. Chu Kuangren thought to himself. Ever since he became an honorable supreme, it was no longer difficult for him to deal with a great sage. Even the 7 of them could not suppress him. After a fierce battle, Chu Kuangren did not suffer any injuries. Instead, he killed one of the 7 sages with his sword. D*Eminent, how can he not have any side effects after using the 9 deaths blazing blood art for so long? The scaled king was shocked as he watched Chu Kuangren fight the 7 scaled tribe sages. He did not expect Chu Kuangren to have such combat strength in the deep ocean. This won't do. Even the sages can't defeat Chu Kuangren. It looks like I'll have to use that item now. The scaled king thought to himself. Then, his figure flashed and disappeared into the depths of the royal palace. In the deep ocean, Chu Kuangren was battling the remaining 6 sages. All sorts of Taoist rhymes intertwined and collided in the void. Chu Kuangren was sent flying by Bei Minghuan's attack, but after he regained his balance, he suddenly pointed a finger at a sage beside him. Heart-piercing finger. It was Chu Kuangren's first time unleashing such an emperor technique, so the sage before him was caught off guard. He felt his Taoist core tremble and he was momentarily dazed. Then, a majestic spiritual power and Taoist rhyme formed a black finger that smashed onto the sage's chest. With a bang, even the body of a sage could not withstand such a terrifying force. His chest collapsed instantly, and all the muscles and bones in his body exploded. A sage was forcefully killed by this one finger. What? What cultivation method is this? Emperor Aura. This is also an emperor art. Doppelganger monarch art, sword monarch art, zither monarch art. Including this finger, he has already executed a total of 4 monarch arts. Why does this guy have so many monarch arts? Where did he come from? All the sages were dumbfounded. In this age of chaos, an emperor technique was too rare. Even the scaled tribe, which had a rich heritage, only possessed an incomplete emperor scripture. Yet Chu Kuangren possessed several emperor techniques. What kind of opportunity of fortune and luck did he have to do that? The scaled tribe sages were extremely shocked. He has used so many emperor techniques consecutively, and the amount of spiritual power he has consumed is unimaginable. He won't last long. Bei Mingfang said. At that, Chu Kuangren sneered. If the sages of the 4 domains were here, they would never say something like that. What do you mean? What I mean is that the scaled tribe is really stupid. How could you not do any intelligence work before dealing with someone? Chu Kuangren said. Then, as he raised his hand, an extremely terrifying suction force erupted from his palm. The corpses around him turned into countless fleshly essences and surged towards him like rivers flowing into the sea. Chu Kuangren's spiritual power, which had been depleted by half, was rapidly recovering. The few sages had tried their best to make Chu Kuangren's weakened aura recover at a rapid pace. Absorbing blood and flesh essences into spiritual power? What kind of weird technique is this? Aside from emperor techniques, how could he have such a strange technique? Quick, stop him. Bei Mingfang's expression changed. The other sages immediately took action. A few Taoist rhymes circulated and attacked Chu Kuangren. At that moment, white lotuses floated around Chu Kuangren's body, and the sages' attacks landed on them with loud explosions. One after another, the white lotuses shattered. However, it also bought Chu Kuangren some time. When the sages' attacks were about to reach him, Chu Kuangren, who had recovered most of his spiritual power, plucked the Guqin strings, and an indescribable Guqin Taoist rhyme erupted. Final movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, grand melodic silence. The soundless Guqin music erupted with Taoist rhymes. In the past, Chu Kuangren could use this technique to kill a great sage. Now that he had reached the supreme honorable realm, coupled with the enhancement of the 9 deaths blazing blood art, it was unimaginable. The strength of this movement was unimaginable. The terrifying sound of the zither shattered the attacks of the sages. The sound of the zither spread and set off shocking waves. Several sages were affected on the spot and were blasted away. Except for the 2 great sages, Bei Minghuan and Bei Minghang, the other sages were killed on the spot. One Guqin music killed 4 sages and severely injured 2 great sages. Bei Minghuan and Bei Mingfang's pupils shrank when they saw such terrifying power. They stared at Chu Kuangren in horror. How can his combat strength be so incredible? This is the scaled tribe's calamity. Just as Chu Kuangren was about to finish off the remaining 2 great sages, a ray of blue light suddenly shot into the sky from the depths of the palace. The light circulated and formed a huge door in the middle of the ocean. A surge of dense spatial energy erupted. What's going on? Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised. This is the gate of the bottomless chasm. It's the king. He's asking for help from the bottomless chasm. Bei Mingfang and Bei Minghuan were overjoyed when they saw the door. In the depths of the palace, the scaled king looked at the huge door in the air excitedly. Is this the legendary gate of the bottomless chasm? Legend has it that the final destination of the past scaled kings leads to the supreme kingdom of the ocean. The bottomless chasm was an ancient kingdom of the ocean that was passed down from generation to generation in the scaled tribe. Legend had it that every scaled king would head to this place after becoming a sage and become a member of this kingdom. It was one of the unknown lands in the firmament star. Every scaled king possessed this secret treasure that could open the gate of the bottomless chasm and ask for help from the bottomless chasm. The scaled king had used this secret treasure to open the gate of the bottomless chasm. Buzz, buzz, At that moment, the gate of the bottomless chasm let out a deep sound. The huge door opened to both sides. A middle-aged man with a golden scale armor and a golden trident walked out, and a terrifying aura instantly engulfed the entire place. "It's the Scaled Tribe's fourth king, Bei Mingxiu," the Scaled King exclaimed when he saw this person. Chapter 341. The Scaled King looked at the man who walked out of the bottomless chasm excitedly. He recognized the man. He also recognized the golden trident in the man's hand. According to the tribe's records, it was a divine weapon of the Scaled Tribe, just like the Sea King's trident, the golden trident. The golden trident had always been in Bei Mingxiu's possession. It was said that he was a rare genius of the Scaled Tribe, and only he could unleash the full power of the golden trident. Hence, when he left, he did not leave the golden trident behind but brought the divine weapon along with him. Although this incident displeased the later Scaled Kings, the Scaled King felt a sense of relief when he saw Bei Mingxiu. As long as Bei Mingxiu was here, Chu Kuangren would die today. The Scaled King thought to himself. The Scaled Tribe's fourth king, Bei Mingxiu, one of the bottomless chasm's 7 great chasm dwellers. His cultivation level is at the peak of the 7-step Great Sage. He cultivates the Northern Dark Black Water Technique, Sage Ruler Technique, Ocean Halberd Technique, Sage Ruler Technique. Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation to analyze Bei Mingxiu's information. Peak of the 7-step Great Sage? The bottomless chasm? Chu Kuangren's eyes turned serious. He had never heard of the bottomless chasm, but he knew that it must be a powerful place to have a 7-step Great Sage like Bei Mingxiu. Is it one of the unknown lands? Chu Kuangren murmured. None of the known sage orthodoxies in the firmament star had a peak of the 7-step Great Sage like Bei Mingxiu. It would be a miracle if they had a normal Great Sage. The only explanation was that it was the unknown lands. Only a mysterious place like that could have such a strong cultivator. Where's the current Scaled King? Bei Mingxiu said faintly. The Scaled King hurried forward and said respectfully, "The 11th Scaled King Bei Mingping greets you, King Bei Mingxiu." Bei Mingxiu glanced at him and said, "You opened the bottomless chasm's door and summoned me here. Did something happen?" "That's right. This villain has invaded the Scaled Tribe and killed millions of our soldiers. He even killed a few sages. Please, King Bei Mingxiu, help us get rid of this threat," the Scaled King said angrily. Bei Mingxiu looked at Chu Kuangren when he heard that. His face darkened when he saw the mountains of corpses and seas of blood around him. Chu Kuangren sneered. He took a step forward and arrived in front of Chu Kuangren. An incredibly violent Great Sage Taoist rhyme instantly erupted and charged towards Chu Kuangren. Then, the golden halberd in his hand seemed to have sensed something and trembled. Bei Mingxiu was rather surprised. "Is my clan's Sea King's halberd in your hands?" "So what if I am?" You've killed so many of my Scaled Tribe members and taken the Sea King's halberd. I will kill you today." Bei Mingxiu said as he gently waved the golden trident in his hand. A terrifying torrential force that was imbued with Taoist rhymes swept out and blasted towards Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren could feel an immense pressure from that one attack alone. Not daring to be careless, Chu Kuangren abruptly plucked and released the strings of the guqin in his hand. The final movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, Grand Melodic Desolation, was unleashed. As the 2 surges of Taoist rhymes collided, the torrential force rushed towards Chu Kuangren. However, a large portion of it was blocked by Chu Kuangren's force field. This force field is a little strange. It can actually block most of my torrential force. It seems like this force field is the reason why this person can move freely in the deep sea and even unleash such extraordinary combat strength. Bei Mingxiu thought to himself. However, he did not feel troubled at all. With the golden trident in his hand and his status as a 7-step Great Sage, he did not believe that he could not handle someone who was below the level of a sage. First form of the Ocean Reversal Halberd Technique. Bei Mingxiu swung the golden halberd in his hand and an even more violent torrential force swept out. However, he did not stop there and continued to swing the golden halberd. Second form, third form, the power of each swing was stronger than the previous one. It was as if the power from the previous one was stacked on top of each other. When it came to the 9th swing, the power of the 9 halberd attacks had reached an unimaginable level. The terrifying Taoist rhymes seemed to be able to overturn the entire ocean. The last swing of the halberd exploded and turned into a majestic torrential force that surged towards Chu Kuangren. Even though Chu Kuangren had the water evasion pearl that could block a portion of the damage, the terrifying Taoist rhymes still inflicted heavy damage on him. Half of his body was almost crushed by the torrential force. Blood, bones, and pieces of his internal organs exploded and scattered into the ocean. Bei Minghuan, the Scaled King, and the others were overjoyed when they saw that. As expected of the fourth Scaled King. His strength is so strong that it's shocking. With the golden trident in his hand, his combat strength is almost on par with the legendary sage rulers. He's just too powerful. Bei Minghuan exclaimed. The others were also filled with admiration. The Scaled King, on the other hand, looked at the golden trident enviously. The reason why Bei Mingxiu could unleash such powerful combat strength was largely due to that golden trident. That was a boundary emperor weapon. One strike is enough to kill you. Bei Mingxiu snorted with a proud look on his face. Is this the power of a sage ruler? It's impressive indeed. It's almost on par with the sage rulers of the ancient battlefield. Chu Kuangren said calmly. Half of his body had been destroyed, but his expression was still calm as if it was not his body that was destroyed. He even casually commented on Bei Mingxiu's strength, which left many people speechless. Did Chu Kuangren go deep into the ancient battlefield and meet a sage ruler? This guy really had the guts to go anywhere. No, look. At that moment, Bei Mingfang suddenly exclaimed. Chu Kuangren's destroyed body was recovering at an incredible speed. In the blink of an eye, half of his body that had been destroyed had been restored to its original state. Everyone was dumbfounded by that scene. What technique is that? How did he do that? Everyone looked at Chu Kuangren as if he was a monster. They had seen recovery-type cultivation techniques before, but it was their first time seeing one as terrifying as Chu Kuangren's. Half of his body had been destroyed, but he could still talk and laugh, and he could even recover in such a short period of time. That kind of ability was just too insane. This guy, don't tell me he has an immortal body? Some Scaled tribe members said in disbelief. No, that's impossible. There's no such thing as an immortal body in this world. I'd like to see how many times you can recover. Bei Mingxiu's eyes turned cold. He did not believe in the so-called immortal body, so he waved his halberd and charged towards Chu Kuangren again. However, Chu Kuangren did not back down against a seven-step great sage with a golden halberd in his hand. The exquisite nine orifices sword heart, infallible tormented physique, transcendent coalescence physique, and the nine deaths blazing blood art had boosted his combat strength to another level. Clang. The descendant self-sword and the golden halberd clashed once again, and a sound wave that was so intense that it set off waves on the ocean surface. The terrifying Taoist rhymes intertwined in the ocean and exploded into a magnificent radiance. After that attack, Chu Kuangren was blasted hundreds of feet away. Then, surges of sword chi shot out from his body and turned into countless sword chi clones that flew in all directions. Chapter 342. Haha, even your real body can't hurt me. No matter how many sword chi clones there are, what can they do to me? Bei Mingxiu had a look of disdain on his face. Chu Kuangren replied calmly, indeed they can't hurt you, but unfortunately, these sword chi clones aren't meant to kill you. The clones dashed in all directions and began to slaughter the Scaled tribe members as soon as they entered the crowd. Sword chi flew everywhere, and the Scaled tribe members were killed on the spot. Bei Mingxiu was deeply provoked by that scene. B*****. How dare you kill my people? Bei Mingxiu glared at Chu Kuangren furiously. If the Scaled tribe kills one of my people, I'll kill 1,000 of them. Do you think I'm joking? Chu Kuangren said coldly. You deserve to die for killing the innocent. Haha, to protect the Black Heaven sect's people, I'm willing to bear the consequences of my sins. If you want to blame someone, blame the Scaled tribe king for invading my Black Heaven sect. Chu Kuangren laughed arrogantly. Were there innocent people in the Scaled tribe? There were. However, Chu Kuangren did not care about that anymore. That was the only way he could kill so many Scaled tribe members that they would not dare to invade the Black Heaven sect again. That was the only way the world would fear Chu Kuangren. You're a lunatic. The Scaled king glared at Chu Kuangren with bloodshot eyes. He could not wait to cut Chu Kuangren into 1,000 pieces. At the same time, he could not help but feel a sense of regret. If he knew he would provoke such a lunatic, he would not have invaded the Black Heaven sect and caused the deaths of countless Scaled tribe members. Go to hell. Bei Mingxiu attacked furiously, and the power of his trident increased. When Chu Kuangren recalled the hundreds of thousands of people who were killed and turned into food for the oceanic beasts, he too was enraged. Raging God's fist. He let out a long roar, and a violent surge of Taoist rhyme instantly erupted. When he threw out a punch, a pitch-black fist imbued with an unquenchable rage was unleashed. Suddenly, a large number of bubbles began to tumble in the sea as the raging flames caused the sea to boil. The fist and the halberd collided, and a violent force shot out, sweeping through more than half of the palace. Under this force, the resplendent palace gradually fell apart, turning into ruins, leaving only countless broken walls. The battle between Bei Mingxiu and Chu Kuangren was still ongoing. Bei Mingxiu wanted to kill Chu Kuangren and end his massacre, but he was helpless. His opponent had an immortal body, so it was difficult to kill him in one go. There was even a time when Bei Mingxiu had smashed half of Chu Kuangren's head into pieces. However, Chu Kuangren was still able to recover in such a short amount of time. That kind of ability made every scaled tribe member's scalp tingle. An unruly and unkillable existence was too terrifying. Even Bei Mingxiu could not help but feel a chill from the bottom of his heart, which made him feel a rare sense of fear. To him, Chu Kuangren was no longer a human. This was a monster. Chu Kuangren's massacre was still ongoing. His sword chi clones were scattered all over the place. With his current strength, although he could only summon 100 sword chi clones, each of them had the combat strength of an honorable. The ordinary scaled tribe soldiers would not stand a chance against them. Bei Minghuan, Bei Mingfang, and the Scaled King were all severely injured. They had no problem protecting themselves, but they were powerless to stop these clones from slaughtering them. At that moment, the entire Scaled tribe was filled with cries of agony. Chu Kuangren's sword chi clones did not differentiate between good and evil. Wherever they went, they only had one goal: to kill everyone on sight. How much damage could 100 supreme beings cause if they attacked one after another? Now, the Scaled tribe had experienced it firsthand. D***eminent. Bei Mingxiu was so angry that he was about to lose his mind. However, he wielded his trident and channeled the torrential force towards Chu Kuangren. Torrential bind. Under the torrential bind, Chu Kuangren's limbs were bound, making it hard for him to move. No matter how much he channeled his spiritual power, he could not break free. Bei Mingxiu channeled all the spiritual power in his body and snorted. "Since I can't kill you, I shall seal you in this deep ocean." With a loud roar, the seabed suddenly shook and a huge crack appeared. It seemed like Bei Mingxiu wanted to seal Chu Kuangren in this crack. The surrounding torrential water wrapped around Chu Kuangren's body and gradually turned into solid blue chains with countless mysterious runes on them. Seal it. These blue chains pulled Chu Kuangren and gradually dragged him into the dark crevice where he could not see the light of day. As the power of the seal strengthened, the spiritual power in Chu Kuangren's body was also affected. The sword chi clones that he sent out dissipated one by one. Just as Chu Kuangren was about to be sealed, a pitch-black spatial crack suddenly appeared in the sea. A terrifying emperor's aura spread out from it, and everything in the surroundings was reduced to nothingness under this emperor's aura. Large amounts of seawater were pushed away, forming a huge spherical space in the deep ocean. Under the influence of this emperor's aura, a flaw appeared in Bei Mingxiu's sealing technique, and the power of the blue chains that bound Chu Kuangren weakened. He took this opportunity to channel his 3 supreme Taoist physiques, unleashing his ferocious chi, sword chi, and transcendental force to break free. Then he dared not stay any longer. He quickly dashed into the distance and disappeared into the deep ocean in the blink of an eye. Bei Mingxiu and the others did not care about Chu Kuangren at this time. They all stared at the spatial crack in horror. A headless figure in white walked out from it. It was the headless lady who had slaughtered everyone on the island. It's her. D***eminent, why is she here? Bei Mingxiu obviously knew about the headless lady's existence. Although he came from the unknown lands, he was still extremely afraid of her. At that moment he finally understood why Chu Kuangren had to escape. Not many people in this world could remain calm when facing the headless lady. Even sages and great sages were no exception. Run. Without another word, Bei Mingxiu dashed towards the bottomless chasm's gate. As for the lives of the other Scaled tribe members, he no longer cared. It was good enough that he could stay alive. However, before he could reach the bottomless chasm's gate, the headless lady gently waved her hand in his direction. An unimaginably terrifying force landed on Bei Mingxiu's body. In the blink of an eye, the 4th ruler of the Scaled tribe, a 7-step great sage wielding the golden halberd, exploded into a cloud of blood mist. All that was left was his head floating in the water. The headless lady took a step forward and came before the head. She held the head in her hands and pressed it onto her own head. However, the head did not belong to her. After pressing it twice, it did not connect. Hence, she gently squeezed with her slender fingers, and Bei Mingxiu's head was instantly crushed into a cloud of blood mist. After sensing her own head twice in a row, the headless lady seemed to be extremely enraged. The emperor's aura on her body surged and swept across the surroundings. Bei Mingfang, Bei Minghuan, and the Scaled King were the first to bear the brunt of the aura. Their bones and flesh were instantly crushed by the headless lady. Following that, a large amount of life essence began to dissipate from their bodies and was absorbed by the headless lady, turning them into dried corpses. Eerie fluctuations spread as countless Scaled tribe members' life essence were absorbed by the headless lady. They could not resist at all. The ocean within a radius of a few 100,000 kilometers was turned into a dead zone. In just a few breaths' time, the headless lady's massacre was comparable to the massacre that Chu Kuangren had killed for half a day. Chapter 343. The appearance of the headless lady had turned the surrounding ocean into a wasteland. Dried corpses floated on the surface of the ocean. It was a horrifying sight. She wandered around the palace for a while, as if she was still searching for her own head. However, to no avail. She was so angry that she stomped her foot, and the entire palace was instantly torn apart. Then she came to the bottomless chasm's door and paused for a while. It was as if she was wondering if her head was inside. She then walked into the bottomless chasm's door. Once the headless lady entered, the bottomless chasm's door closed completely. At that moment, no one knew what kind of being was waiting for the bottomless chasm. After the headless lady left, the huge spherical space that she had created also dissipated. Large amounts of seawater flowed in, forming whirlpools that filled the surroundings. It took a long time for everything to return to normal. Suddenly, a figure arrived at the palace ruins. It was Chu Kuangren who had returned. He looked at the dried corpses of the Scaled tribe members and could not help but feel a lingering fear. Luckily, I ran fast enough. Needless to say, the headless lady was attracted by Chu Kuangren. Before he arrived at the Scaled tribe, he had already removed the talisman on the headless lady's head and released the signal that would attract the headless lady. He then stuck the talisman back on her head. The reason he did that was to borrow the headless lady's strength to deal with the Scaled tribe. After all, the Scaled tribe was the ruler of the ocean, and their resources were extraordinary. It was not wrong for him to have a few more insurance. In fact, he was taking a gamble by doing that. Who knew when the headless lady would come? Who knew if his immortal body could withstand the headless lady's attacks? These were all unknowns. However, it seemed like everything was going in his favor now. The headless lady appeared just as he was about to be sealed, and she helped him break the seal. Chu Kuangren was fast enough that the headless lady could not catch up to him. In the end, she even made it to the bottomless chasm. As expected, handsome men do not have bad luck. Chu Kuangren grinned. Then he could not help but mourn for the bottomless chasm for a few seconds. Even in the unknown lands, facing the headless lady was not easy. He began to wander around the ruins of the Scaled tribe's palace. After all, as the center of the Scaled tribe, there must be a lot of good stuff here. Using the treasure locating skill, he managed to scavenge a lot of treasures. Needless to say, there were spirit stones, spirit marrow, and many other treasures from the sea. These were very valuable in the 4 regions. After all, the rarer something was, the greater its value. There were not many treasures from the sea in the 4 regions. But in the deep sea palace there were a lot of them. And this trident. Chu Kuangren picked up the golden trident that Bei Mingxiu had left behind. It was an extraordinary item. Like the Heaven's Halberd and the Sea King's Halberd, it was also a boundary emperor weapon. Moreover, the 3 of them seemed to have some kind of connection. There should be records about these 3 boundary emperor weapons in this palace. Let's go and take a look, Chu Kuangren muttered. He searched around the palace and finally found a forest of tombstones that contained countless historical records of the Scaled tribe. The forest of monuments recorded the history of the Scaled tribe, including the number of sages, the number of Scaled kings, etc. What concerned Chu Kuangren the most was, the Scaled tribe once had an emperor. Therefore, strictly speaking, the Scaled tribe should be considered an emperor-level orthodoxy. However, that emperor did not reign for a long time, and it had been a long time since then. Hence, the heritage that he had left behind was gradually depleted, and even the emperor's scripture had become incomplete. Hence, the Scaled tribe's strength was much weaker than a true emperor-level orthodoxy. But then again, the entire firmament star, including the unknown lands, might not even have one emperor-level orthodoxy. It was no joke that there had not been an emperor in the last 150,000 years. Even if there was an emperor-level orthodoxy, the emperor's heritage would have been depleted after such a long time. Chu Kuangren continued to read the Scaled Tribe's records. Soon he found records related to the 3 boundary emperor weapons. According to the records, other than an emperor's scripture, the Scaled Emperor had also left behind an emperor's weapon called the Sea King's Halberd. However, this halberd was damaged in a great battle, and after the emperor of the Scaled Tribe, no one else could refine this emperor weapon. Hence, the Scaled Tribe split the Sea King's Halberd's power. From then on, the Sea King's Halberd was split into 3. They were the Heaven's Halberd, the Sea King's Halberd, and the Golden Halberd. Among them, the Sea King's Halberd was wielded by the Scaled Tribe's young master, the Golden Halberd by the Scaled King, and the Heaven's Halberd by the Scaled Tribe's strongest general. However, according to the records, the previous general who wielded the Heaven's Halberd died in battle tens of thousands of years ago. Since then, the Heaven's Halberd had been lost to the outside world, and the Scaled Tribe had spent tens of thousands of years searching for it to no avail. Chu Kuangren pondered. The Heaven's Halberd must have been obtained by the Lu Kingdom's ruler, but the Lu Kingdom's ruler had sealed himself within the Lu Kingdom's enchanted boundary tens of thousands of years ago to suppress the millions of tormented souls. That seal lasted for tens of thousands of years. No wonder the Scaled Tribe couldn't find it. I bet the Scaled Tribe rarely went onto land, so how could they have known that the Heaven's Halberd was hidden within the ancient battlefield's Lu Kingdom? Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up as he looked at the golden halberd in his hand. When the 3 halberds merged together, they were the legendary emperor weapons. Although he had the sacred emerald sword case, it was a support-type emperor weapon. On the other hand, the Sea King's Halberd was an offensive emperor weapon. If he could wield the Sea King's Halberd, his combat strength would increase tremendously. By then, killing a great sage like Bei Mingxiu would be a piece of cake. At that thought, Chu Kuangren was eager to try it out. However, he did not recklessly merge them together. After looting the palace for a while, he turned around and returned to the surface. Meanwhile, on the surface, the news of Chu Kuangren's battle with the Scaled Tribe had spread far and wide. Many people were paying close attention to what was happening on the surface of the sea. After Chu Kuangren entered the sea, the entire sea was no longer calm. Waves surged, and terrifying energy waves constantly emanated from the bottom of the sea. That kind of energy waves made all the sages shudder. In the end, there was even an emperor's aura. Everyone was dumbfounded by that. Did the Scaled Tribe have an emperor-level trump card? After a while, the emperor's aura disappeared, and the sea gradually returned to its calm state. Then, corpses floated up from the sea. Within a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers, countless corpses floated on the surface of the sea. A thick, pungent smell of blood permeated the entire surface of the sea. It was not an exaggeration to call the scene in front of them a living hell. All the sages were stunned. They dared not imagine what Chu Kuangren had done in the deep sea for there to be so many corpses. Even a sage would be shocked by the sight of it. Such monstrous killing intent, it's too terrifying. Where's Chu Kuangren? Is he still alive? Oh my God, there are at least tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of lives here. How could Chu Kuangren do it? Too scary, too scary. If Chu Kuangren doesn't die today, then from now on, we must never provoke this person ever again. This kind of crazy behavior is infuriating. The sages were scared half to death by Chu Kuangren. Although most of the saints viewed the common people as ants, it was absolutely unprecedented to kill so many of them at once. After a long while, Chu Kuangren still did not appear. Just when everyone thought that he was dead, they heaved a sigh of relief. A figure broke out of the water. Chapter 344. Chu Kuangren broke out of the water. His appearance caused the saints who were observing in secret to turn pale with fright. This guy is not dead yet. Chu Kuangren naturally knew that many sages were watching him, but he did not care. He simply said, "The Scaled Tribe has killed more than 100,000 people of my Black Heaven sect. I'll pay for it with my life. I, Chu Kuangren, will bear all the consequences of this. If any of the sages here are dissatisfied, I'll gladly oblige." With that, he ignored the shocked sages and disappeared from the surface of the sea. The sages' spiritual thoughts did not disperse as they continued to communicate with each other on the surface of the sea. Especially when the sages noticed the corpses on the surface of the sea, their fear of Chu Kuangren reached its peak. Are those dried corpses? Suddenly someone noticed something. They realized that most of the corpses floating on the sea were dried corpses. Why do these dried corpses look so familiar? One of the sages said in shock. Aren't these the corpses of the people who were killed by the headless lady on the unnamed island? Their life essences have all been sucked dry. The sages only regained their senses when they heard that. The headless lady had left such a deep impression on them that they quickly remembered who she was. Coupled with the terrifying emperor's aura that erupted from the sea not long ago, many of them immediately thought of something. Could it be that the headless lady appeared when Chu Kuangren was fighting the scaled tribe and killed so many of them? Is Chu Kuangren related to the headless lady? Many of the sages thought of the headless lady's overwhelming strength and the possibility that Chu Kuangren was related to the headless lady. Just the thought of it sent chills down their spines. Chu Kuangren is not someone we can mess with. If he really is related to the headless lady, not even 10 great sages on our side can do anything. The sages were even more afraid of Chu Kuangren as their imagination ran wild. After Chu Kuangren left the sea, he returned to the snowstorm sect's territory. It had only been a day since he left. The corpses on the shore had been buried. Just as Chu Kuangren returned, the godly phoenix Lil Red sensed his presence and quickly came over. Brother, you're back. Are you alright? I'm fine. Chu Kuangren shook his head slightly. Then he looked at the snowstorm sect leader and the others who had arrived with the divine phoenix and said, the Black Heaven sect will send some people to help with the rebuilding of the snowstorm sect. As for the scaled tribe, I don't think they will dare to attack us again. A hint of killing intent flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes. That murderous intent sent chills down one's spine. The snowstorm sect leader and the others knew that the scaled tribe must have suffered a huge setback. Chu Kuangren must have killed many of their people. Even sages might have perished. Even the Snowgale sect leader could not imagine how many people Chu Kuangren had massacred in the scaled tribe this time around. Many thanks, sect master. The Snow Wind sect master cupped his hands. Yes. The remaining work of cleaning up the aftermath would be handed over to the Snowstorm sect's sect leader and the others. After returning, he would let Elder Rian send people to help rebuild. Very soon. The news of Chu Kuangren wreaking havoc in the Scaled Tribe and killing nearly 100 million Scaled Tribe members spread like wildfire across the entire firmament star. Regardless of whether it was the 4 regions or the outer seas, everyone was scared half to death. Since ancient times, it was extremely rare for someone to kill so many living beings in a day like Chu Kuangren did. Many sages had not even witnessed such a thing even once in their long lives. As time passed, Chu Kuangren's reputation in the 4 regions and the outer seas continued to grow. One could say that he was like the sun in the sky. Everyone was wary of this lunatic. While Chu Kuangren was at the peak of his fame, a few young sky prides of unknown origins gradually appeared on the firmament star. These young sky prides possessed terrifying combat strength. Some of them were even on par with sages, and all of them had a common name. They were called Empyrean Walkers. The forces they represented were the unknown lands of Firmament Star that few people knew about. Only the sages knew more or less about them. Somewhere in the Firmament Star, in a dazzling palace that was suspended in the air, an old man sat with his legs crossed. A handsome young man in a black robe suddenly walked in. He looked at the old man and said respectfully, "Greetings, honorable teacher. Yes, Yexen, you'll be leaving the 7 Astral Palace tomorrow. You're leaving this time to spread the name of the 7 Astral Palace and fight for fortune in this era of great battles. I have a list of sky prides here. Pay attention to the people on this list. These people may very well become your opponents." The old man took out a list and handed it to the young man Yexen. Yexen took the list, but a hint of disdain flashed across his eyes. "Honorable teacher, you're worrying too much. Although there are many sky prides in the outside world, most of them are below the level of a sage. How can they compare to me? My opponents are those Empyrean Walkers." Ah! Suddenly Yexan exclaimed softly. That was because one of the names on the list in his hand was placed on the first line, and it was written in red. Obviously this person was not ordinary. Chu Kuangren. Who is this person? Yexan was curious. Upon hearing that name, the old man in front of Yexan fell silent for a while before he said, "He's your biggest enemy on this trip. He's the most unpredictable anomaly in the past 150,000 years." Yexan's expression changed slightly. He had never seen such a serious expression on his honorable teacher's face before. Did his honorable teacher have such an evaluation of Chu Kuangren? At that thought, Yexan suddenly had an unwillingness to admit defeat. "Chu Kuangren. I really want to meet this person. Remember, unless absolutely necessary, do not make an enemy out of this person," the old man said solemnly. I understand. Somewhere else. In a gloomy and treacherous hall. A young man in a black robe was sitting cross-legged with ferocious skulls moving back and forth on his body. The grand hall was filled with an eerie aura, and even the surrounding pillars were covered in frost. The young man slowly stood up and looked out of the grand hall. We'll be leaving Acheron Manor tomorrow. I wonder what kind of people the Empyrean walkers will be like this time. I'm looking forward to it. Doubtless, aside from those Empyrean walkers, you need to pay special attention to another person. If I'm not mistaken, this person will be even more difficult to deal with than those Empyrean walkers. An old voice suddenly rang out in the grand hall. The young man was curious. Oh, who is it? Black Heaven sect leader? Chu Kuangren. Remember, if you meet Chu Kuangren, you must be extremely careful when you fight him. His combat strength is no less than a great sage's. A conversation could be heard in one of the pavilions. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man in white. In front of him was a young man in a green robe. His body was surrounded by strands of razor-sharp sword qi. Yes, honorable teacher. The young man nodded slightly, but there was a hint of eagerness in his eyes. In the firmament star, various unknown lands had appeared one after another in this era of great battles. They sent out their sky prides into the realm to fight for fortune. The sky pride's battle had entered a whole new phase. Chapter 345. Ever since the battle with the Scaled Tribe, Chu Kuangren had returned to the Black Heaven sect. He had not left the Towering Heaven Palace for the past few days as well. This puzzled Elder Rian and the others. Didn't he just go into closed-door meditation to become an honorable supreme? Why did he go into closed-door meditation again? Although they were puzzled, they did not think too much about it. However, while Chu Kuangren was in closed-door meditation, the unknown lands began to reveal themselves one after another, stirring up a storm in Firmament Star. The sage orthodoxies that used to be superior were no different from the average orthodoxies in the face of these unknown lands. Some sage orthodoxies even tried to use this opportunity to curry favor with the unknown lands. However, no one had heard of any sage orthodoxies doing so. Besides that, the Empyrean walkers from the various unknown lands began to show their prowess on Firmament Star, defeating all the sky prides. The young emperors, the 10 unparalleled heroes, and other top-notch sky prides who used to be superior were no match for these Empyrean walkers. The unknown lands, the unknown cultivation techniques, and the Empyrean walkers who came from the unknown lands and cultivated the unknown cultivation techniques. This was the hottest topic in the Firmament Star right now, the topic that attracted the most attention. Inside the Black Heaven sect. Inside a valley. A few Taoists of the Black Heaven sect were training. When they were done, they gathered together and seemed to be discussing something. I heard that a few days ago, the young emperor of the Overlord Sage tribe, Chang Tian, was killed by an Empyrean walker from ethereal rapture in 3 moves. At that moment, Nangong Huang suddenly said. Upon hearing that, the Taoists' expressions froze. They had witnessed Chang Tian's strength in the Sky Pride Championship, but they did not expect him to be defeated in 3 moves. They would not have dared to imagine such strength in the past. He only used 3 moves. The sect leader can easily suppress Chang Tian with just a lift of his hand. He's no match for the sect leader. Jin Fian pouted and said. The others also showed expressions of agreement. However, Nangong Huang still said, the sect leader is us and we are us. If we keep relying on the sect leader, there will be no future for the Black Heaven sect. Compared to these Empyrean walkers, we still have a long way to go. We need to work harder in our cultivation. Who knows if we'll face them in the future? Well said. Among us, perhaps only Lan Yu can compete with those Empyrean walkers. Murong Xian looked at Lan Yu, who was still training. Ever since her return from the first city, Lan Yu has been in a state of high-intensity training. Out of the 24 hours in a day, only 4 hours were used for other tasks. The rest were used for cultivation. Even if the other party was a venerable one, it was not easy for them to endure the training. Not only was it a test of their physical qualities and cultivation base, but it was also a huge burden on their minds. Boom. Lan Yu had destroyed one of the sword chi clones in the sword gauntlet. At that moment, her face was covered in sweat. The sword chi clones in front of her once again reformed and struck out with their swords, sending her flying out of the sword gauntlet. Lan Yu exited the sword gauntlet and let out a long sigh of relief. The 48th floor of the sword gauntlet is too terrifying. The sword chi doppelganger is indestructible and its strength will always be higher than mine. How did the young master manage to pass through it? She thought, frowning. After leaving the sword gauntlet, Lan Yu went to the gravity training field. She only returned to the towering Heaven Palace in the evening. At night, she used the Taoist Palace's formation to cultivate her spiritual power. The next morning she got up and walked out of her house. She glanced at Chu Kuangren and saw that he was still in closed-door meditation. However, there was something unusual about the Black Heaven sect that day. On her way to the sword gauntlet, Lan Yu noticed that there were very few disciples in the Black Heaven sect. She stopped a passing disciple. Where did everyone go? Lan Yu asked curiously. Everyone went to the Longevity Hall. I heard that an Empyrean walker came to the Longevity Hall. Everyone was curious, so they went to take a look. An Empyrean walker? Lan Yu's eyes lit up when she heard that. She followed a group of disciples to the Longevity Hall and saw the Empyrean walker there. It was a young man dressed in black with a dignified aura. Elder Rian was busy attending to him, so she dared not neglect him. After all, he was a representative of the unknown lands. I heard that he came from a place called the Qixing Palace. Along the way he defeated 3 young emperors in a row, and each time he only used one move. What? Is that powerful? That's right. These Empyrean walkers are extremely powerful, and none of them should be underestimated. I heard that they are comparable to sages. That terrifying? Outside the Longevity Hall, everyone was discussing fervently. Lan Yu was also among them, sizing up the Empyrean walker. Gradually, a serious look appeared in her eyes. This person is very strong. Inside the Longevity Hall, Yexian smiled. I wonder where sect leader Chu is now? The sect leader is currently in closed-door meditation. It's not convenient for him to meet any guests. Elder Rian said. Yexian frowned. I wonder when sect leader Chu will come out of his closed-door meditation? We're not sure about that. Chu Kuangren did not mention when he would come out of his closed-door meditation, nor did he mention the reason for his closed-door meditation. Therefore, the people of the Black Heaven sect did not know when he would come out of his closed-door meditation. Since Chu Kuangren had been in closed-door meditation for 3 years, they would not be surprised if they did not see him for a year and a half. Since sect leader Chu is in closed-door meditation, I'll wait for him in the Black Heaven sect. I wonder if Elder Rian can arrange a place for me to stay? Yexian smiled, showing no intention of leaving. Hearing this, Elder Rian frowned slightly. May I know why you must look for our sect leader? Nothing else. I've heard that sect leader Chu is very powerful, so I'm here to learn a thing or two from him. Yexian did not hide the purpose of his visit. His words did not come as a surprise to Elder Rian and the others. The reason why Empyrean walkers entered the realm was to make a name for their orthodoxies in this era of great battles, to fight for fortunes, and to pave the way for the unknown lands to fully reveal themselves. Since ancient times, there were only a few ways for a cultivator to make a name for himself. Among them, the most convenient and common way was to defeat some famous people with their strength and use their reputation as a stepping stone to rise to the top. In this world today, who could be more famous than Chu Kuangren? It was only a matter of time before he was targeted by the Empyrean walkers. Brother Yi, don't worry. I'll get someone to arrange a place for you to stay, Elder Rian said after some thought. Since Yexian was here to challenge the unknown lands, it would be too impolite to just send him away. Moreover, it would give others the impression that Chu Kuangren was a coward. Where's Chu Kuangren? At that moment, a voice came from outside the Black Heaven sect's mountain gate. Everyone looked over and saw a muscular young man standing in front of the Black Heaven sect's mountain gate. A strange look flashed across Yexian's eyes when he saw that person. I was wondering who it was. So it's the immovable sect's Empyrean walker, Guisan. Everyone was speechless when they heard his words. Holy sh*T, another Empyrean walker? Elder Rian brought her people to Guisan and said, May I know why you're here looking for our Black Heaven sect leader? I want to challenge Chu Kuangren. Guisan laughed. Elder Rian shook her head helplessly. Fine, another one is here to challenge our sect leader. Chapter 346. While Chu Kuangren was in closed-door meditation, the Empyrean walkers kept coming to challenge him. First came Yexian, then came Guisan. After making arrangements for the two of them, another 2 Empyrean walkers came knocking on Elder Rian's door in the next few days, giving her quite a headache. Meanwhile, news of the Empyrean walkers challenging Chu Kuangren had spread like wildfire, and many people were paying close attention to this matter. In the Black Heaven sect, the 4 Empyrean walkers were currently gathered together. Everyone, what do you guys think of Chu Kuangren? Yi Xian from the Qixing Palace was the first to speak. At the side, a woman with a voluptuous figure smiled charmingly. I heard that he has the looks of a celestial being. Who knows how many people have been mesmerized by his face. I really want to see just how beautiful he is. Humph, I didn't expect the Empyrean walkers of Thousand Flowers Valley to be such shallow people. What a disappointment, a burly man with black hair and black sneered and said disdainfully. This person was an Empyrean walker from the Battle Cloud Realm, Zhanlong, who's like you Battle Cloud Realm people. You're all a bunch of battle maniacs who don't know how to appreciate the beauty of life. Feng Yaorao, the Empyrean walker from Myriad Flower Valley, rolled her eyes and said, I've heard that this Chu Kuangren can fight a great sage. I don't know if it's true, but his strength shouldn't be underestimated. Yi Xian said, Haha, I know that Chu Kuangren won't be able to come out of his closed-door meditation anytime soon. Why don't we have a competition first? What do you think? Guishan of the Immovable Residence suddenly suggested. Upon hearing that, the eyes of the other three lit up. The most battle-hungry Zhanlong even grinned and said, All right then. Since Chu Kuangren has yet to come out of his closed-door meditation, it's fine to have a few appetizers first. Hearing his words, everyone raised their eyebrows. Treating us as an appetizer? You sure are arrogant. I just don't know if you can eat it. Let me test you first. Guishan took a step forward, and an extremely majestic Taoist rhyme erupted from his body. It was as if his entire being was connected to the ground beneath his feet, and his entire body emanated an aura that was as heavy as a mountain. The immovable manner was proficient in the Tao of Earth Qi. They could borrow the boundless earthen Qi and transform it into battle power. Alright, come on. Zhanlong laughed out loud, and a majestic Taoist rhyme erupted from his body as well. This Taoist rhyme was violent and scorching. As it spread out, more than half of the Black Heaven sect seemed to be shrouded in an endless battle cloud. Everyone could almost hear the roars of battle coming from the void. Nangong Huang, Murong Xian, and the others were all alarmed. They looked into the distance with bewilderment in their eyes. Such a terrifying aura. Is this the strength of an Empyrean walker? They are indeed extraordinary, but why are they fighting? Let's go and take a look. The few of them hurried over to where the Empyrean walkers resided. Guishan and Zhanlong had already started fighting. Both of them were extremely powerful sky prides. Just the clash of their Taoist rhymes alone had affected half of the Black Heaven sect. As they fought, terrifying energy ripples spread, and many of the spectating disciples were sent flying. What a terrifying aura. We can't even get close to it. Too strong. Some of the disciples discussed spiritedly, feeling incomparably amazed. In the face of such a battle, only Nangong Huang, Murong Xian, and the others could withstand the pressure and watch the battle from a close distance. Even so, it was still very difficult for them to fight Empyrean walkers like Guishan and Zhanlong. Boom. Guishan and Zhanlong's fists and palms collided. The violent earth qi and surging spiritual energy collided, causing the mountain beneath their feet to rapidly crack and collapse with a loud bang. A landslide erupted, instantly destroying the residences of some of the nearby disciples. However, Guishan and Zhanlong were oblivious to it. They were still engrossed in their battle, their terrifying Taoist rhymes constantly intertwining. Boom, boom, boom. Both of their combat strength was extraordinary, and great power was often accompanied by destruction. The battle between the two Empyrean walkers had already caused severe damage to some parts of the Black Heaven sect. Although it was not a big deal for a large sect like Black Heaven sect, who knew how many more things would be destroyed? If they continued to fight like this, who knew how many more things would be destroyed? If more lives were lost, it would be even more difficult to clean up the mess. No, we have to stop them. At least let them fight somewhere else. Nangong Huang frowned slightly. His figure flashed and spiritual energy surged all over his body. Yin-yang divine light flowed in his eyes as he resisted the shockwaves from the battle between the two Empyrean walkers. Both of you, please stop. Your battle has already caused damage to the Black Heaven sect. Go fight somewhere else. Nangong Huang said loudly. We're having a good time. How can we possibly stop? Don't worry, we'll compensate for the damage. We have plenty of spirit stones anyway, Zhanlong said with a laugh. His body was burning with a raging battle intent. Opposite him, Guishan was equally excited. That's right. We're already at this stage. How can we stop just like that? Come take this. Seal of mountains and rivers. Guishan formed a mysterious hand seal, and waves of earth qi gushed out from the surface of the ground. It then transformed into a gigantic mountain range that carried a peerlessly powerful and boundless Taoist rhymes as it smashed towards Zhanlong. Good one. Zhanlong's eyes lit up. He clenched his fist, and an equally powerful Taoist rhyme gathered. Heaven Conqueror Fist. Break. He threw a punch and the fist force raged like a torrential flood. Boundless battle intent and Taoist rhymes slammed into the void. Both forces had reached the level of a sage, and the shockwaves caused by the collision spread. Nangong Huang, who was closest to the battle, was shocked. He quickly mobilized all the spiritual energy in his body and emitted a yin-yang divine light to resist the impact. Even so, he was still pushed back hundreds of feet. He felt a tightness in his chest, and he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. What a powerful force. I can't even withstand the shockwaves. Nangong Huang watched the battle in horror. Both Empyrean walkers were not at the level of a sage, but they could exert sage-level combat strength. This was what Empyrean walkers were like. Without absolute strength, how could they dare to make a name for their sect? Deep within the Black Heaven sect. This is too much. Do they really think that just because they're Empyrean walkers and represent the unknown lands, they can do whatever they want in the Black Heaven sect? The Black Heaven sect's third forefather said angrily. Just when he was about to stop Guisan and Zhanlong from causing more damage to the Black Heaven sect. In the distance, a sword ray shot into the sky from the direction of the towering Heaven Palace, and an incredibly cold sword-based Taoist rhyme quickly spread. The Black Heaven sect's third forefather and the others could not help but be surprised. This aura, is the sect leader out of his closed-door meditation? It's not the sect leader. It was not Chu Kuangren who came out from the towering Heaven Palace. Instead, it was an exquisite and beautiful sword shaped like white jade. That was the sword that was ranked first in the 100-sword spectrum. Descendant Self. The Descendant Self sword trembled slightly, and like a stream of light, it shot into the sky above the battle between Guisan and Zhanlong. Then an overwhelming sword-based Taoist rhyme gushed out. When Guisan and Zhanlong felt the terrifying sword-based Taoist rhyme, their expressions changed and they stopped what they were doing. Chapter 347. The Descendant Self sword stopped above the two Empyrean walkers. An incredibly cold sword-based Taoist rhyme emanated and landed on the two Empyrean walkers, forcing them to temporarily stop their attacks. They looked at the Descendant Self sword that was floating in the air with a hint of fear in their eyes. They dared not act recklessly. Is Chu Kuangren here? Guisan asked solemnly. No, he's not here. It's only his sword that's here. Not far away, Yexan took a deep breath and said. He had done some research on Chu Kuangren before he arrived, so he naturally knew that the magnificent ancient sword before him was Chu Kuangren's weapon. Yet, a single sword was already so powerful. What about Chu Kuangren's combat strength? At that thought, Yi Xian's heart was filled with fear, but at the same time he was looking forward to meeting Chu Kuangren. Indeed, he's a strong opponent. A single sword. Upon hearing that, Zhanlong was enraged. What does Chu Kuangren mean? A single sword? Is he trying to suppress us with just a single sword? Isn't he looking down on us a little too much? As he said that, he took a step forward and clenched his fist. An extremely violent Taoist rhyme poured out like a torrent towards the Descendant Self sword. The power of this strike was unparalleled. The fist energy swept through the void, causing the void to rumble with sonic booms. Just as that punch was about to land on the Descendant Self sword, the sword trembled slightly and an even more terrifying sword-based Taoist rhyme gushed out, accompanied by a dazzling purple sword ray. The sword ray destroyed Zhanlong's punch like a hot knife through butter before it landed on Zhanlong's body. The terrifying force sent Zhanlong flying hundreds of feet away, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. The Empyrean walkers at the scene were dumbfounded by that scene. Just a single sword and a single sword chi could render an Empyrean walker defenseless. What kind of terrifying strength was that? Chu Kuangren really lives up to his name. Guisan said solemnly. Not too far away, Zhanlong flew into a rage out of humiliation. Boundless spiritual energy seemed to surge from his body and his eyes were gradually dyed with a layer of black light. I was too careless just now. I still have an even stronger move that I have yet to use. I don't believe that a single sword can do anything to us. They were Empyrean walkers who represented the various unknown lands in the world. They shouldered the mission of spreading the name of their orthodoxies, but now they were being suppressed by a sword. If word of this got out, what would they say? The other Empyrean walkers would laugh themselves to death. I advise you to conserve your strength. Don't get mad at a sword. Chu Kuangren hasn't even shown himself yet. Just as Zhan Long was about to make his move, Yi Xen suddenly said. Upon hearing his words, Zhan Long's eyes flashed. After pondering for a while, he slowly retracted the aura on his body. That's fine too. I'll save this move for Chu Kuangren when I meet him. High up in the sky, the Descendant Self-Sword, which had sensed that Zhan Long's aura had been withdrawn, trembled slightly. Then, an even more powerful sword-based Taoist rhyme erupted from its body, crashing onto the 4 Empyrean walkers like mountains. It was as if it was asking, do you guys still want to fight? In the face of such a provocative Descendant Self-Sword, Zhan Long was so angry that he almost attacked again. However, he forced himself to restrain himself in the end. After the Empyrean walkers stopped their attacks, the Descendant Self-Sword hovered in the sky for a while before it retracted its sword-based Taoist rhyme. It then turned into a stream of light that pierced through the clouds and returned to the towering Heaven Palace. What a good sword! Yi Xen could not help but exclaim. Humph, the sword is good, but I wonder how the person is doing. I hope he doesn't disappoint me too much. Zhan Long snorted coldly. You were sent flying by a single sword chi. I really don't know where you get the courage to say that, Feng Yaorao said with a chuckle. Zhan Long's expression darkened. Feng Yaorao, do you want to fight? Believe it or not, if we keep fighting, that sword will fly back to us. When that happens, I don't want to be sent flying by a sword like you, Feng Yaorao said with a faint smile. Alright, let's not cause any more trouble before Chu Kuangren comes out of his closed-door meditation. Yi Xen said. Feng Yaorao and Guisan nodded. They had the same thought. As for Zhan Long, although he was unwilling, there was nothing he could do. He could only suppress his anger and wait for Chu Kuangren to come out of his closed-door meditation. Not far away, Nangong Huang and the others looked at each other. Are we going to stop fighting just like that? The sect leader only used a sword to stop the battle between these Empyrean walkers. TSK, this technique is truly admirable. The sect leader is indeed the sect leader. He easily achieved what we couldn't. That's right, the few Taoists discussed. At the same time, after witnessing the battle between the Empyrean walkers, they deeply felt that their strength was far from enough. Compared to these Empyrean walkers, their performance in the Sky Pride Championship was not even worth mentioning. They were not on the same level at all. I have to work harder. Nangong Huang said emotionally. The Descendant Self-Sword flew back to the towering Heaven Palace and landed in Chu Kuangren's room. Is it settled? Chu Kuangren smiled as he looked at the Descendant Self-Sword that had returned. The Descendant Self-Sword floated up and down as if it was nodding. It then spun around twice as if it was asking for praise. Not bad. Chu Kuangren did as the Descendant Self-Sword wished and praised it. The Descendant Self-Sword spun around happily a few more times before it lay quietly on the bed. How dare a few Empyrean walkers mess around in the Black Heaven sect? I'm afraid these newbies haven't been beaten up by society yet. Chu Kuangren curled his lips and said. Then, he looked at the 3 orbs of light that were floating in front of him and a strange look flashed across his eyes. I guess it's almost time. The 3 orbs of light were black, silver, and gold respectively. They were the Heaven's Halberd, Sea King's Halberd, and Golden Halberd that Chu Kuangren had obtained consecutively. At this moment he was refining these 3 Boundary Emperor weapons, planning to merge them into one and turn them back into the Emperor weapon, Sea King's Halberd. Refining a monarch armament was not an easy task. In the past, Chu Kuangren was able to refine the sacred emerald sword case because he had the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, which was very compatible with the sacred emerald sword case. With the sword case recognizing him as its master, the refinement process was unusually smooth. However, refining the Emperor weapon, Sea King's Halberd, was not so easy. This Emperor weapon was the Scaled Tribe's Emperor weapon, and all Emperor weapons were arrogant and prideful. Without its recognition, it would be difficult for an ordinary cultivator to refine it. In other words, it was not a human who chose the Emperor weapon. It was the Emperor weapon that chose the human. It was definitely not an easy task to refine it by force. Chu Kuangren was extremely talented. Although the Emperor weapon did not resist his refinement, it was not as active as the sacred emerald sword case either. Therefore, it would take him some time to refine this Emperor weapon. This was also the reason why he had been in closed-door meditation for the past few days. Now, this Emperor weapon was almost fully refined by him. Time passed. Another 2 days had passed. Just when the Empyrean walkers were getting impatient and countless people were waiting to see how Chu Kuangren would deal with the 4 Empyrean walkers, Chu Kuangren's room door opened. In the courtyard, Lan Yu and Lil Bing looked over in surprise. "Master, you're finally out of closed-door meditation." The two of them went up to greet him. In the distance, Yi Xian, Zhan Long and the others also sensed it. "Haha, he's out." Chapter 348. Haha, he's finally out. After waiting for so long, it's not a waste of time. "Chu Kuangren, I'm coming." The 4 Empyrean walkers gathered in the Black Heaven sect all turned into streams of light and flew towards the Towering Heaven Palace. Inside the Towering Heaven Palace, Chu Kuangren was catching up with Lil Bing and Lan Yu while the godly phoenix rubbed itself against him. Suddenly, he seemed to have sensed something and looked into the distance. "That annoying person is here." Chu Kuangren curled his lips with a look of disdain. If it were a normal challenge, he would not be so disgusted. After all, people loved fame and there were many who wanted to use him as a stepping stone, not to mention these Empyrean walkers who wanted to make a name for their orthodoxies. However, a challenge was a challenge. What was the point of destroying the Black Heaven sect's public property? Did he really think that the Black Heaven sect's soulstones came from nowhere? He had worked so hard to win them back. "Aha, Chu Kuangren, you're finally out." A burst of laughter resounded in the sky above the Towering Heaven Palace. Zhan Long was the first to arrive, and his battle intent erupted. The battle intent was like a tidal wave that slammed into the void and caused the weather to change. The entire Towering Heaven Palace shook twice. Chu Kuangren frowned. "I'm afraid you won't be able to pay for my palace if you damage it." Hearing that, Zhan Long laughed and said, "You're the Black Heaven sect leader. Can't you even part with a Taoist palace?" "Rest assured, sect leader Chu. If this battle causes any damage, we'll pay for it." At that moment, Yi Xian also arrived. Feng Yaorao and Guisan also arrived. When she saw Chu Kuangren, a strange look flashed across Feng Yaorao's eyes. "You really have the looks of a celestial being. Little brother, why don't you give up your position as sect leader and follow me back to the Thousand Flower Valley? I guarantee that you'll enjoy yourself so much that you'll never want to leave again." Chu Kuangren replied, "No need. I'm doing quite well as a sect leader. My back is not sore and my legs are not aching. If I go to the Thousand Flower Valley, I'm afraid I won't even be able to get out of bed." "Aha. Little bro, you sure know how to joke. How could we make it so that you can't even get out of bed? You make it sound like Myriad Flower Valley is a den of demons and we will eat you up," Feng Yaorao said with a coquettish laugh. "Cut the crap. I know why you came to my Black Heaven sect. I don't like trouble. It's too troublesome to fight one by one. I sincerely suggest that you all come at me together." Chu Kuangren said with an indifferent expression as he stood with his hands behind his back. However, his words made the 4 Empyrean walkers' expressions change slightly. Even Feng Yaorao, who had been smiling all this while, had a hint of anger on her face. "Sect Master Chu, you're looking down on us too much." Yi Xian's face darkened. As Empyrean walkers from the unknown lands, they naturally had their own pride. However, now that they were being looked down upon by Chu Kuangren, coupled with the fact that they had waited for so many geniuses, they could not help but be enraged. However, Chu Kuangren did not seem to notice their anger at all. He continued, "I'm not looking down on you guys. I'm just proposing the most reasonable plan based on the current situation." His words did not comfort the Empyrean walkers. Instead, it was like adding fuel to the fire, making them even angrier. "What do you mean by the current situation? What is the most reasonable plan? If you say that we're no match for you, then just say it, be ****starred. Chu Kuangren, you sure are arrogant. I'd like to see if you can still say something like that later." Zhan Long was the first to lose his patience. He took a step forward and dashed out. His 5 fingers were filled with a majestic force as he clenched them into a fist and smashed it towards Chu Kuangren. Lan Yu and Lil Bing, who were behind Chu Kuangren, felt an extremely terrifying pressure sweeping towards them. Lan Yu could withstand it, but Lil Bing was in a difficult situation. Her body trembled, and it was only thanks to Lan Yu that she did not kneel on the ground. Upon seeing that, Chu Kuangren unleashed his Battle Monarch domain to protect the 2 ladies. He then looked at Zhan Long, who was charging towards him with a cold gaze. "How rude of you to attack just like that." He raised his hand and unleashed a punch as well. He did not use any mystical Taoist techniques. Instead, he simply blasted out his spiritual power. Even so, with the 6 supreme foundation levels in his body, The power of that punch was still extremely terrifying. An incredibly powerful surge of spiritual power spread out like a tidal wave and collided with Zhanlong's punch. The huge force sent Zhanlong flying. Then, Chu Kuangren's figure turned into a stream of light and appeared before Zhanlong. His speed was so fast that it was difficult for anyone to react. When Chu Kuangren arrived before Zhanlong, he grabbed him by the collar without any resistance. Then he dashed into the distance. Yexan, Feng Yaorao and Guisan quickly chased after him. Chu Kuangren arrived at the Black Heaven sect's mountain entrance with Zhanlong in his grasp. He lifted his arm and flung Zhanlong into a mountain peak. "Alright, it's more spacious here. Let's fight here," Chu Kuangren said. Behind him, Yexan, Feng Yaorao and Guisan had already caught up. They were speechless when they saw Zhanlong being flung into the mountain peak. Zhanlong was not weak, but he was still caught by Chu Kuangren and thrown into the mountain without any resistance. Just the thought of it was terrifying. At least, the three of them could not do it. He asked the four of us to attack him together. Perhaps he really has the strength to fight all of us at once, Yexan said solemnly. Chu Kuangren. At that moment, a roar came from the mountain peak. Zhanlong soared into the sky. First he was suppressed by Chu Kuangren's sword and now he was thrown into the mountain. His rage had already accumulated to the limit. Mixed with his battle intent, it erupted in one go and swept out in a frenzy in all directions. "Oh, you're angry now," Chu Kuangren said playfully. "Chu Kuangren, eat this." Sky Conqueror fist violent. Zhanlong gave it his all. His eyes were filled with black light, a sign that his battle intent had reached its limit. After he unleashed that punch, a series of battle roars erupted in the void. The power of that punch had surpassed that of an ordinary sage. For someone below the level of a sage to be able to unleash such a fist technique, Zhanlong's talent and combat strength could be said to be rare. That was the true strength of an Empyrean walker trained by the unknown lands. He was an unparalleled sky pride that surpassed the understanding of the world. Battle intent? What a coincidence, I have one too, Chu Kuangren said. A terrifying ferocious chi suddenly erupted from his body. Infallible tormented physique activated. As he unleashed his punch, an even more terrifying battle intent and ferocious chi erupted. The battle roar that reverberated in the void overpowered Zhanlong. When the two fist energies collided in the void, Zhanlong's fist energy was shattered in less than a breath's time. The fist energy that was mixed with ferocious chi and battle intent landed on Zhanlong's body. The terrifying force immediately smashed his opponent thousands of feet into the ground, forming a huge pitch-black crater. "I told you to come at me together. Why didn't you guys believe me? Alright, now it's just the three of you." Chu Kuangren looked at Yexan and the other two and gestured for them to come at him. "Come on, let's get this boring farce over with as soon as possible." Chapter 349. Come at me together. Let's end this nonsense quickly, Chu Kuangren said calmly. His words made the remaining three Empyrean walkers' faces turn grim. They did not expect Chu Kuangren to look down on them so much. Immovable Residence Empyrean Walker, Guishan, thanks for the challenge. Guishan took a step forward and channeled the spiritual power in his body. A surge of majestic Taoist rhyme erupted, guiding the surrounding earth chi into the sky. The earth chi gathered in the void and turned into a mountain range that was filled with dense energy. It then smashed towards Chu Kuangren. Seal of mountains and rivers. Facing an attack that was comparable to a sage's, Chu Kuangren calmly raised his hand. "I'm familiar with guiding the power of earth chi too." He raised his hand and a surge of violent yellow earth chi rose from the ground. Its scale was even more majestic than Guishan's seal of mountains and rivers. The earth chi gathered in his palm and emitted a yellow divine light. Chu Kuangren gently clapped his hands. A surge of terrifying human mountain energy erupted from his palm and swept away the incoming mountain range as if it was sweeping away dust. Accompanied by a deafening sound, the huge mountain range was forcefully shattered into pieces and turned back into spiritual chi. The Taoist rhyme then dissipated. Guishan's eyes widened when he saw that. How is this possible? He knows how to use earth chi too, and it's so terrifying. Guishan came from the immovable residence, and among the unknown lands, the immovable residence was the best at using earth chi. Ever since he entered the realm, Guishan had dominated the firmament with his earth chi manipulation technique and the seal of mountains and rivers. This was the first time in his life that he was at a disadvantage in a battle of earth chi. It was a huge blow to him. I'll take him on. Yi Xian from the Seven-Star Palace made his move too. He took a step forward and a large amount of starry Taoist rime flowed beneath his feet. It instantly formed a magnificent scene of the Milky Way. Seven-Star Sword Go. A sword appeared in Yi Xian's hand. The sword's design was extremely gorgeous, and it was surrounded by streaks of starry Taoist rime. With a swing of the sword, the starry Taoist rime around Yi Xian gathered and turned into a dazzling sword ray that resembled the Milky Way. Such a sword Tao was magnificent, dazzling and peerlessly vast. It does look good, but it's too gaudy, Chu Kuangren said. Then, without moving the descendant self-sword at his waist, Chu Kuangren pointed his sword finger and drew a line in the air. Following that, a purple sword ray appeared out of thin air and rushed out with a majestic sharpness. The moment the two sword chis collided, the Milky Way sword chi shattered inch by inch. The entire sword chi, from the spiritual energy to the Taoist rime, collapsed. The sword light slashed toward Yi Xian like a hot knife through butter. He blocked with his sword. With a loud clang, the Big Dipper sword in his hand hummed incessantly as he was forcefully knocked back several thousand feet. He held the Seven-Star Sword in his hand, but his palm was already cracked and bleeding. At this moment, the sound of a zither suddenly resounded. Feng Yaorao took out a zither and plucked it with her 10 fingers. An incomparably profound zither sound reverberated in the air. There seemed to be a faint fragrance drifting in the air, tugging at the heartstrings of people. Between heaven and earth, hundreds of flowers suddenly bloomed. Each flower was formed by the spiritual energy drawn by the sound of the zither, and contained an incomparably sharp strength. The sound of the zither was captivating, the fragrance of the flowers was intoxicating, and the petals were deadly blades. This was the sound of the zither from the 10,000 Flower Valley, 100 flowers in bloom. The sound of the zither continued to reverberate. However, Chu Kuangren had an invisible barrier around him that kept the petals at bay. His eyes were clear, and he did not look like he was mesmerized by the zither sound. Instead, he looked at Feng Yaorao with interest. Upon seeing this, Feng Yaorao plucked all 10 fingers, and the sound of the zither did not stop. She channeled her spiritual energy and more spiritual chi gathered. Under the guidance of the zither sound, countless petals swayed in the air and floated toward Chu Kuangren. The zither sound is not bad, but the Taoist rhyme is a little lacking. You should meet my zither. Chu Kuangren chuckled. He then placed the lingering zither in front of his chest. He plucked the strings and a surge of surging zither Taoist rhyme instantly erupted. Boundless heaven and earth, stormy city, resounding bells, the sound of the zither reverberated throughout the land. Feng Yaorao's zither sound was instantly suppressed by Chu Kuangren's 8 celestial demonic chords. That dense and majestic zither Taoist rhyme stunned her. She could not move her fingers on the zither strings. The difference in their zither Taoist rhymes was obvious. The 4 great Empyrean walkers, 4 peerless sky prides from the unknown lands, were defeated by Chu Kuangren in their respective areas of expertise. Such a blow was even more unbearable than directly defeating them. I don't believe it. I don't believe that you're truly invincible. Not far away, Zhan Long, who was punched thousands of meters into the ground by Chu Kuangren, rushed out with a set of black armor on his body. That armor was extremely ferocious as it covered Zhan Long's entire body. Coupled with Zhan Long's overwhelming battle intent, he looked like a god of war. He took a stride forward while monstrous battle intent erupted from him. Under the boost provided by the armor, his might actually rose a level higher than before. Sky-conquering tyrant fist, world crumbling. Zhan Long roared with a soaring battle intent. He threw out a punch, and a terrifying spiritual power and Taoist rhyme that seemed capable of destroying the world erupted. In an instant, the world crumbled and the winds and clouds changed. A gigantic fist mark descended from the sky. That fist mark had yet to come close, but it had already caused the ground around him to crack and explode, forming a huge crater. Faced with such power, Chu Kuangren remained calm. He gently lifted his hand, and boundless ferocious chi and battle intent gushed out. The infallible tormented physique was activated once again. Chu Kuangren gently threw out a punch, but a surge of violent fury gushed out. Raging God's Fist. The pitch-black fist mark burned with raging flames as it violently smashed onto Zhan Long's fist mark. The 2 fist marks collided and exploded. A terrifying shockwave spread out rapidly, and the mountains within a 100-kilometer radius crumbled in an instant. Smoke and dust rose into the air, almost covering half the sky. Under such a terrifying shockwave, Zhanlong was forced to retreat even though he was protected by his black armor. He could feel a sense of suffocation in his chest. What a terrifying fist energy. Even through a sage ruler armor, it can still hurt me. That's terrifying, Zhanlong said with fear in his heart. Seeing that Zhanlong had unleashed his trump card, the other 3 Empyrean walkers no longer held back and unleashed their own trump cards. Streaks of dazzling starlight circulated around Yixin, forming a spectacular scene of the Big Dipper hanging in the sky. Big Dipper descent. With a loud shout, the Big Dipper in the sky shone brilliantly at the same time, and 7 streaks of starlight shot out from it. The 7 stars converged and formed a 100-meter-long Big Dipper sword shadow. Wherever the sword shadow passed, the void seemed to be torn apart. Seal of mountains and rivers, 10,000 mountains. Wuxia roared, and an endless amount of earth chi converged towards him, forming a gigantic seal that was engraved with the majestic scene of 10,000 mountains and rivers. It then smashed towards Chu Kuangren. Feng Yaorao too channeled her spiritual power to its limits as she plucked the guqin with all 10 of her fingers. Waves of guqin music surged in the void and blasted towards Chu Kuangren like a tidal wave, wave after wave. Everlasting fragrance. The strongest guqin music in the Thousand Flower Valley had been unleashed. The 3 Empyrean walkers had each used their trump cards and unleashed their strongest techniques. 3 different surges of Taoist rhymes, but all of them were equally powerful and unparalleled as they blasted towards Chu Kuangren. Chapter 350. The 3 Empyrean walkers unleashed their trump cards at the same time. Terrifying energies blasted towards Chu Kuangren at the same time, causing the air around him to explode continuously. Even the void was almost distorted. Chu Kuangren stood calmly in the void amidst all these energies. It was as if everything before him was nothing more than a gentle breeze. He held the guqin in front of him and plucked the strings with his fingers. His eyes narrowed and a majestic guqin Taoist rhyme gushed out. Heavenly reverberation. The guqin music reverberated through the air. The heavens and earth trembled. Wave after wave of guqin Taoist rhyme attacked everything around him. The dazzling Big Dipper sword shadow was disintegrated, the gigantic mountain river seal was shattered, and the enchanting guqin Taoist rhyme went silent. The energies that blasted towards Chu Kuangren were completely disintegrated by the guqin Taoist rhyme. They could not hurt him at all. On the other hand, Yixin, Feng Yaorao, and Wuxia were all severely injured by the heavenly reverberation. They spat out mouthfuls of blood, and their bodies involuntarily flew backward. Their auras instantly weakened. Among the 4 Empyrean walkers, only Zhanlong, who was wearing a sage ruler weapon armor, could still fight. However, after witnessing Chu Kuangren's overwhelming combat strength, Zhanlong could not help but gulp. His battle intent was much lower than before, and he looked at Chu Kuangren with shock in his eyes. This is too terrifying. He managed to injure 3 Empyrean walkers so easily. Is this guy really from an orthodoxy like the Black Heaven sect? Besides, Zhanlong glanced at the descendant self-sword hanging on Chu Kuangren's waist. He knew that Chu Kuangren most likely did not use his full strength because he had not drawn his sword since the beginning. We've lost this battle. Zhanlong took a deep breath and said. Although he was unwilling to admit defeat, he knew very well that he was no match for Chu Kuangren even if they continued fighting. The 4 Empyrean walkers had suffered a crushing defeat in today's battle. Since you've admitted defeat, there are some things that we should talk about, Chu Kuangren said as he put away his lingering song. What is it? I'm sure you've destroyed quite a number of buildings in the Black Heaven sect a few days ago. You should at least compensate us with some soul stones, right? Of course. Zhanlong did not refuse and threw out a yin and yang ring. Chu Kuangren took it and nodded in satisfaction. As expected of the Empyrean walkers from the unknown lands. They were so generous with their gifts, casually handing out tens of millions of upper-grade spirit stones. TSK. Those unknown lands had existed for countless years, and the depth of their heritage far surpassed that of the sage orthodoxies. Who knew how many treasures they had? If he could go there and plunder, at that thought, Chu Kuangren hurriedly extinguished that dangerous thought. The unknown lands had a lot of resources so he could not afford to mess around. He looked at Guishan, who handed over his interspatial ring. Very good. Since we fought, I won't be sending you off, Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Then, his figure turned into a stream of light and disappeared on the spot. Looking at the direction of the Black Heaven sect's mountain gate, the few Empyrean walkers could not help but smile bitterly. They were all cultivated by the unknown lands and were prodigies who had made a name for their orthodoxies. Their battle prowess was much stronger than the prodigies of the outside world. Therefore they were arrogant. When they descended into the realm this time, they had defeated countless sky prides with a near-invincible attitude. They did not expect to suffer an unprecedented blow from Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren, this person's strength is unfathomable. Yixen took a deep breath and said, with this person around, it'll be difficult for others to become emperors. Zhan Long was extremely solemn as well. Since the great Dharma emergence of this era, there won't be only one person who becomes an emperor. However, the first person to become an emperor will undoubtedly have a huge lead. But with this person around, who can beat him to becoming an emperor? A person like him is indeed worthy of being called a celestial being. Feng Yaorao said with a strange glint in her beautiful eyes. Not only did she not resent Chu Kuangren for beating her up, she even felt a strange sense of admiration for him in her heart. The news of Chu Kuangren defeating 4 Empyrean walkers spread like wildfire. Some of the forces who were paying attention to this matter were shocked. They had expected Chu Kuangren to win, but they did not expect him to win so easily. The unknown lands in particular were even more depressed. They had sent Empyrean walkers into the realm for 2 reasons. 1, to spread the name of their orthodoxies and pave the way for the appearance of the unknown lands. The other reason was to let the Empyrean walkers fight for luck in this era of great battles and win the opportunity to become an emperor. However, now there was a Chu Kuangren in the world. He was the only one in the world, and all the luck in the world was concentrated in his hands. How many opportunities did the others have to become an emperor? Chu Kuangren did not know what the unknown lands were thinking. Of course, even if he knew, he would not care. Becoming an emperor depended on one's own abilities. Being stronger than others was his greatest ability. After defeating the Empyrean walkers, Chu Kuangren returned to the Black Heaven sect. Nangong Huang, Elder Rian, and the other elders held a celebration feast for him. Chu Kuangren felt that there was no need for such a grand celebration since he had only defeated a few Empyrean walkers. However, he could not dissuade Elder Rian and the others. A few days after the celebration feast, Chu Kuangren received a piece of news. Oh, Linglong is preparing to ascend the throne? Chu Kuangren could not help but be surprised when he saw the Royal Azure Dynasty ruler's message. Princess Linglong of the Royal Azure Dynasty was about to ascend the throne, and Chu Kuangren had no reason to reject her invitation. The next day, Chu Kuangren brought Lan Yu to the Royal Azure Dynasty. At this time, the Royal Azure Dynasty was also very lively. The news of Princess Linglong's ascension had spread like wildfire in a short period of time. Although it was rare for a woman to be in charge of politics, it was not unprecedented in the history of the Royal Azure Dynasty. Moreover, Princess Linglong's reputation in the Royal Azure Dynasty had been growing over the years, so no one objected. Of course, even if there were, it would be easily suppressed. It did not take long for Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu to arrive at the Royal Azure Palace. The Royal Azure Dynasty ruler and Princess Linglong came out to welcome them. Fiancé, you're here. Yes, it's your ascension ceremony. Of course I have to come. Chu Kuangren looked at the dazzling Princess Linglong and smiled. Ha, my dear son-in-law, the news of you defeating 4 Empyrean walkers has spread like wildfire. You're indeed the best. The Royal Azure Dynasty ruler laughed. Father, you flatter me. Then the Royal Azure Dynasty ruler hosted a banquet for Chu Kuangren. At the banquet, many of the royal family members were present. Some of the capital city's socialites looked at Chu Kuangren with admiration in their eyes. They looked at Princess Linglong with envy. The princess and her fiancé are really a match made in heaven. That's right. The fiancé is the Black Heaven sect leader, the most popular person in the world today. On the other hand, the princess is going to ascend the throne in 2 days and take control of the Royal Azure Dynasty. The two of them are well matched. The socialites were truly envious. Princess Linglong also had a faint smile on her face. Chu Kuangren, on the other hand, maintained a gentle smile on his face, which made the socialites' hearts race. Nevertheless, they did not dare to have any ideas about him. They knew very well that with their status, it was impossible for them to get involved with Chu Kuangren. Chapter 351. At the banquet, Chu Kuangren noticed Gu Chang'e, who was sitting at the side. She was originally the crown prince, so logically speaking she should be the one to ascend the throne. Now, it was Princess Linglong who was going to ascend the throne. Chu Kuangren would not have been surprised even if the emperor was unwilling and angry. However, at this moment, the emperor was chatting happily with the princes beside him. He did not seem to be angry at the fact that his throne had been taken away. Chu Kuangren was secretly surprised. Had she become so broad-minded after not seeing her for a few years? He thought about it for a while and decided to ignore it. The royal Azure Dynasty king must have told Gu Chang'e about Linglong's ascension to the throne. He must have done some mental preparation. Soon the banquet ended. One by one the royal family walked out of the palace. What a pity. The throne should have been the crown prince's. Who would have thought that Linglong would appear out of nowhere? That's right. But Linglong is also extraordinary. She's very resourceful, or else father wouldn't have valued her so much. Most importantly, her fiancé is Chu Kuangren. That's her biggest trump card. It's no wonder that father would choose her. Tsk, what a shame. The crown prince may look fine on the surface, but who knows how frustrated he must be. The two princes walked out of the palace with their arms around each other's shoulders, tipsy. Suddenly they bumped into someone. When they looked up, it was Gu Chang'e standing in front of them. Both of them straightened their faces and quickly bowed. Greetings, Your Highness. Our apologies for bumping into you, Your Highness. We're a little drunk. No worries. Gu Chang'e smiled faintly. If there's nothing else, we'll take our leave. Both of them did not dare to stay any longer. Who knew how much of their conversation Gu Chang'e had heard? If they were to pursue the matter, they would be in deep trouble. The sky is dark. Since you two are a little drunk, please be careful. Gu Chang'e acted like a caring elder brother. Thank you for the reminder, Your Highness. We'll be careful. Both of them slowly left. Gu Chang'e did not do anything and left as well. Not far away, Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu watched everything unfold. This Gu Chang'e has changed a lot. Young master, do you think he's faking it? Lan Yu said with a frown. Chu Kuangren shook his head. I don't know. Gu Chang'e had changed a lot. Those who didn't know might think that he had been possessed by someone. However, Chu Kuangren had used his eye of revelation to observe her. She was still the same Gu Chang'e. Aside from her slightly stronger cultivation level, there were not many other changes to her. She did not seem to have been possessed either. It doesn't matter if he's faking it or if his personality has really changed. As long as he doesn't pose any threat to Linglong, everything will be fine. Let's go, we should head back too, Chu Kuangren said. Yes. Inside the palace, the royal Azure Dynasty king had specially arranged for Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu to stay in their respective palaces. Even if the two of them were not around, there would be someone to take care of the place. As long as the two of them came to the palace, they could move in at any time. The night before Linglong's coronation ceremony, a maidservant arrived at Chu Kuangren's palace. Prince Consort, the princess would like to invite you over. Is something the matter? Chu Kuangren was rather surprised. This servant does not know. All right, I got it. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. He followed the maidservant to Linglong's palace and saw her standing in front of a bronze mirror. She was dressed in an incomparably gorgeous royal robe, like a high and mighty queen, exuding an air of nobility. Prince Consort, this is the dress for tomorrow's coronation ceremony. Do you think it looks good? Princess Linglong opened her arms and smiled. The royal robe was embroidered with mountains, rivers, and auspicious beasts. The crimson skirt dragged on the ground like a blazing fire. Linglong wore a phoenix hairpin on her head. Her silky black hair flowed down her back like washed silk, and the dress on her chest was embroidered with a peony that symbolized nobility. She was beautiful, but at the same time, she exuded a noble aura that could not be offended. Graceful and luxurious, showing off the demeanor of an empress. Chu Kuangren let out a heartfelt compliment with a smile. Linglong, who was praised, revealed a smile on her face. Then, she shot a glance at the maidservant beside her. The maidservant understood tacitly, bowed, and then excused herself. Only Linglong and Chu Kuangren were left in the palace. Prince Consort, it's all thanks to you that I'm able to reach where I am today and become the empress. Allow me to propose a toast to you. Princess Linglong flicked her sleeves and 2 cups and a pot of wine appeared on the table. Chu Kuangren smiled. You're too kind, princess. Both of them chatted as they drank. Since it was just the two of them, Princess Linglong opened her heart to Chu Kuangren and told him many things that outsiders did not know. Outsiders only saw her appearance, but they did not know how much effort she had put in to ascend to the throne. Since young, aside from cultivation, she had to learn all sorts of scriptures, the mind of an emperor, and deal with the ministers of the imperial court. I'm very happy. Tomorrow I can finally ascend to that position. I will definitely bring peace to the world and bring peace to the world. Princess Linglong spoke of her ambition. After 3 rounds of wine, she did not use her cultivation to dispel the alcohol. Her face was flushed red, which made her already noble look even more seductive. But there's something I'm even happier about. Princess Linglong stared at Chu Kuangren and smiled. That is, I've gotten to know you, Prince Consort. Although I haven't spent a lot of time with you, I believe that I've enjoyed every moment that I've spent with you. She got up and slowly walked towards Chu Kuangren. She stretched out her slender finger and drew a circle on Chu Kuangren's chest. Her eyes were a little misty as she said, I wonder if you've ever fallen for me, Prince Consort? Looking at the tipsy Princess Linglong before him, Chu Kuangren's heart skipped a beat. He grabbed her arm, pulled her into his arms and bent down to pick her up. Ah! Princess Linglong could not help but scream when her body was suddenly lifted into the air. Chu Kuangren looked at Princess Linglong in his arms and smirked. I'm very touched now. Princess Linglong heard him and hooked her arms around Chu Kuangren's neck. She whispered into his ear, stay for tonight. As you wish, Your Majesty. Chu Kuangren carried Princess Linglong to the bed. He then reached out to take off his robe. However, Chu Kuangren was quite frustrated when he was taking off the royal robe. Why is this royal robe so troublesome? It's one piece at a time. Are you panicking now? I'm dying of anxiety. After some effort, the royal robe was taken off one by one. Then, the bead curtains fluttered in the wind and the bed creaked. Sorrowful moans could be heard. The battle went from one end to the other, from once to twice, then thrice, until the sky turned bright. Your Highness, the coronation ceremony is about to begin. The servant's voice came from outside the door. Princess Linglong slowly woke up and looked at Chu Kuangren, who was sleeping in her arms. She smiled and got up to put on her clothes. However, she frowned as if she had touched a sore spot. She seemed to have thought of something and looked at the sleeping Chu Kuangren. She blushed and muttered, this guy doesn't know how to control himself. Chapter 352. Chu Kuangren's eyelashes fluttered as he slowly woke up. He got up and yawned, feeling refreshed. Beside him, Princess Linglong was already dressed with the help of a servant girl. He watched from the side with a smile in his eyes. Princess Linglong initially wanted to pretend that she did not see it, but she could not help but admit defeat under his gaze. Her fiancé was just too good looking. Especially when he looked at her with a smile in his eyes. It was so unbearable that her body felt like jelly. Fiancé, what are you looking at? Why aren't you dressed? Princess, you look a little weird today. Weird? Princess Linglong looked into the mirror. What do you mean? You look good. Princess Linglong was speechless. The servant girl beside her could not help but laugh. She did not expect the Black Heaven sect leader, who was on par with the Royal Azure dynasty, to have such a side to him. You may leave now, Princess Linglong said to the servant girl. All right. After the maidservant left, Princess Linglong looked at Chu Kuangren and said helplessly, it's fortunate that she's my personal maidservant. Otherwise, if word of your glib tongue were to spread, your reputation as the honorable sect leader would be ruined. If it's ruined, then so be it. I don't care. Chu Kuangren said nonchalantly. Then, with Princess Linglong's help, Chu Kuangren put on his clothes. Both of them then walked out of the bedroom and headed towards the ceremony. Welcome, Your Majesty. At the ceremony, the officials stood neatly in a row. Princess Linglong was dressed in a royal robe. She looked dignified as she walked towards a high platform. Behind her, 2 servant girls were holding up the hem of her dress. Chu Kuangren watched from the side. He could not understand why the gown had to be designed in such a way. It was so complicated. It took him a lot of effort to undo it yesterday. If not for the fact that he had to use it for the ceremony today, he would have torn it apart. Incense to the heavens. I, Gu Linglong, the 17th ruler of the Royal Azure dynasty, hereby pray to the heavens. May the heavens bless the Royal Azure dynasty with good weather. After a round of prayers, the Royal Azure dynasty king handed the imperial seal to Linglong. With that, the ceremony was over. Greetings, Your Majesty. Greetings, Your Majesty. The officials kowtowed. Linglong had become the Royal Azure dynasty king. The 9-headed snake-let pearl disappeared? After the coronation ceremony ended, Linglong and the Royal Azure dynasty ruler received a piece of news that caused their expressions to change. Beside him, Chu Kuangren was rather surprised. Nine-headed snakelet pearl? What is that? Fiancé, you may not know this, but the nine-headed snakelet pearl is one of the treasures of the Royal Azure dynasty. It was crafted from the holy spirit of an ancient beast, the nine-headed snakelet, and has been sealed deep within the palace. At this point Ling Long frowned. If the nine-headed infant pearl is gone, then why don't we see the guardian of the nine-headed infant pearl? Where is he now? In reply to the Empress, Elder Lu is dead. The guard who came to report said. Elder Lu was the guardian of the nine-headed snakelet pearl. He was an existence that was close to becoming an honorable supreme. There were not many people in the Royal Azure Sky Palace who could kill him. Hurry up and investigate who did this, Ling Long said with an ugly expression. It was only the first day of his ascension to the throne, and such a thing had already happened. This was a slap to her face. If this matter was not handled well, it would definitely have a significant impact on her prestige as the new empress. There's no need to investigate. It was done by Gu Chang'e. At that moment an old man walked into the palace. Upon seeing this person, the Royal Azure Dynasty king went up to him. Said, you're here. You said that this was done by Chang'e. What happened? This old man was one of the sages of the Royal Azure Dynasty. Not long ago, Gu Chang'e went to the nine-headed snakelet pavilion, killed the guardian, and took the nine-headed snakelet pearl. When I realized this, I wanted to capture him, but I didn't expect him to have a secret treasure on him. I chased after him to no avail and he escaped. At this point, the sage's expression turned ugly. Unfilial son, this unfilial son. The Royal Azure Dynasty king was furious. He wanted to leave the palace to look for Gu Chang'e, but he was stopped by the sage. Calm down. Sage, don't stop me. I must capture this unfilial son and bring him back. The Royal Azure Dynasty king said angrily. Father, please calm down first. There are still some strange things that we haven't figured out yet. Princess Ling Long also tried to persuade him. What else is there to figure out? This unfilial son must be unhappy that I didn't pass the throne to him. That's why he stole the nine-headed snakelet pearl. Firstly, even if Gu Chang'e was unhappy, why would he use such a method to take revenge? Secondly, there are so many treasures in the palace, why would he target the nine-headed snakelet pearl? Is there something special about this nine-headed snakelet pearl? At that moment, Chu Kuangren spoke. At his words, the Royal Azure Dynasty king and the sage looked at each other. Beside them, Princess Ling Long had a serious look on her face as she said, I'm afraid this has something to do with the Nine-Head clan. The Nine-Head clan, the Royal Azure Dynasty's nemesis? That's right. The Nine-Head clan has always worshipped this ferocious beast, the nine-headed snakelet. All these years, they've attempted to enter the palace to steal the nine-headed snakelet pearl, but they've all failed, Princess Ling Long said. Does this mean that after Gu Chang'e stole the nine-headed snakelet pearl, he'll most likely head to the Nine-Head clan? Chu Kuangren asked. That's possible. Princess Ling Long nodded. I'll send troops to the Nine-Head clan and bring Gu Chang'e back. That's not a good idea. You've just ascended to the throne, so your foundation isn't stable yet. If you recklessly start a war with the Nine-Head clan, your chances of winning are slim, the Royal Azure Dynasty king said. I'll go. At that moment, Chu Kuangren said. Everyone looked at him. Since I don't have much to do these days, I'll pay a visit to the Nine-Head clan. If Gu Chang'e is really there, I believe they'll give me face. Probably. Chu Kuangren smiled. The Royal Azure Dynasty king and the others looked at each other. If Brother Chu is willing to go, then it won't be a problem. I'll have to trouble you then. The Royal Azure Dynasty sage bowed and said. No problem. Chu Kuangren smiled. He did not stay in the palace for long and departed the next day. Inside the Nine-Head clan, a young man dressed in black held a rainbow-colored bead in his hand. The bead was glowing with light, and inside it was a nine-headed serpent that was letting out bursts of roars. It was the nine-headed snakelet pearl that was stolen from the Royal Azure Dynasty palace. Brother Li, now that I've obtained the nine-headed snakelet pearl, I wonder if you've promised to let me join the craggy ocean tower? Behind the black-robed man stood a person. It was Gu Chang'e. The black-robed man smiled. Rest assured, Brother Gu. Since you've helped me with this, I'll let you join the craggy ocean tower. Not only that, but I'll also request the sect leader to let you become a Taoist. That's much better than being a king. Hearing the words of the man in black, Gu Chang'e's eyes lit up and he looked a little excited. Thank you, fellow Li. The craggy ocean tower was one of the unknown lands, and its resources were much stronger than the Royal Azure dynasties. To Guchanga, as long as he could join the craggy ocean tower and become a Taoist, his future would be bright. Once I become a core member of the craggy ocean tower, the Royal Azure dynasty will be my oyster. What Royal Azure dynasty king? I don't care. Guchanga snorted. Chapter 353. On the way to the Nine-Head clan, Chu Kuangren held in his hand a drawing that he bought from a hawker. On the drawing was a strange snake with 9 heads, and its ferocious appearance sent chills down the spines of anyone who saw it. An ancient wild beast, the 9-headed snakelet. Rumor has it that this wild beast is good at controlling fire and water. I didn't expect the 9-Head clan to worship such a wild beast. Interesting. Chu Kuangren smiled. Beside him, Lan Yu also looked at the drawing curiously. How ugly. It's not as pretty as Lil Red, Lan Yu said. Of course. One is an auspicious divine beast while the other is a wild beast. There's no comparison. However, this 9-headed snakelet is not to be underestimated either. If we were to rank it according to its bloodline, the 9-headed snakelet is second only to the divine beasts. Chu Kuangren said. Then he looked at the barren Taoist prefecture. We're only 300 kilometers away from the Blackwater prefecture where the 9-Head clan is. Let's go. We should be there by today. Inside a tent in the 9-Head clan. Everyone, once young Master Li awakens the 9-headed snakelet, will be able to conquer the Taoist prefecture. The 9-Head clan leader was enjoying wine and meat as he talked about the bright future with the elders. The rest of the elders were also excited. Boom. At that moment, a thunderous roar came from outside. Dark clouds gathered and a storm descended from the sky. D***, I've had enough of this sh***T2I place. It's always raining torrents and floods. One of the elders snorted. Hearing his words, the rest of the elders also looked at him with disdain. Although this was the place where they grew up, they had no nostalgia for this place. All they felt was disdain. As long as we conquer the Royal Azure dynasty, the vast Taoist prefecture will be ours. By then we can get whatever resources we want. That's right. This is all thanks to the young master. It's all thanks to his foresight that we could get the 9-headed snakelet pearl from him. I can't wait to have some fun at the Royal Azure Dynasty Palace. The elders laughed heartily. At that moment, a member of the 9-Head clan rushed into the tent. That person was panicking and his eyes were filled with fear as he said, "Clan leader, bad news? What happened? Why are you so panicked?" Chu Kuangren is here. Everyone's expressions changed when they heard this. Why is he here? Wait, is he here because of Guchanga? The 9-Head clan leader's expression froze. Only then did he and the other elders remember that Chu Kuangren was not only the Black Heaven sect leader, but he was also Linglong's husband. He was also the king consort of the Royal Azure dynasty, which meant that he had countless ties with the Royal Azure dynasty. Come, let's go meet this Chu Kuangren. The 9-Head clan leader said after a moment of silence. They walked out of the tent. Within the torrential downpour, 2 people stood there. One was a man and one was a woman. Both of them were peerless geniuses. Around them, there was an invisible barrier that easily blocked out all the rain. The ground was covered with muddy water, the sky was raining, and the wind was howling. On the other hand, these 2 people were untainted by even a speck of dust. It was as if they were isolated from the world. They stood aloof from the world and were breathtaking. A strange look flashed across the 9-Head clan leader's eyes. He then slowly walked towards Chu Kuangren and Linglong and said with a smile, "Sect leader Chu, your presence brings light to our humble 9-Head clan. Alright, I'll skip the pleasantries. Hand over Guchanga and the 9-headed snakelet pearl," Chu Kuangren said. The 9-Head clan leader was taken aback. "Sect leader Chu, what are you talking about? Guchanga is the Royal Azure dynasty's crown prince. Why would he be here? And what's the 9-headed snakelet pearl? You can't hide the truth by pretending to be ignorant. I advise you to hand it over before I decide to be rough with you," Ling Yun said. "Sect leader Chu, I'm really—" Before the 9-Head clan leader could finish his sentence, an inexplicable chill appeared amidst the torrential rain and enveloped half of the 9-Head clan settlement. "I'm running out of patience. Please speak cautiously, clan leader," Chu Kuangren said. The rain was loud and Chu Kuangren's voice was not loud, but the 9-Head clan leader could hear him clearly. At that moment, his heart turned cold and he felt as if the blood in his body was about to freeze. "Sect leader Chu, Don't you think you're being a little too overbearing by forcing the Nine-Head Clan to hand it over? At that moment an old voice could be heard. An old man suddenly appeared in the void. This old man was wearing a robe, and he stared at Chu Kuangren with a displeased look on his face. Chu Kuangren glanced at him. He was the sage of the Nine-Head Clan, a third-step sage. Then Chu Kuangren slowly raised his arm, and a majestic Buddhist light formed into a giant golden palm that slammed towards the old man. The rainwater was blasted apart by that attack, turning into a mist that filled the sky. What? The old man's expression changed. He did not expect Chu Kuangren to attack so suddenly. Caught off guard, he quickly channeled his spiritual power to gather the rainwater around him and formed a giant water pillar that smashed towards him. The two energies collided. Then the water pillar was shattered by the giant golden palm, and the violent energy swept out and landed on the old man's body. In an instant the old man was sent flying and landed heavily on the ground. His clean robe was stained with muddy water. A sage like him looked like a beggar by the roadside. Chu Kuangren, you've gone too far. The Nine-Head Clan leader said angrily. However, as soon as he said that, a powerful sword-based Taoist rhyme spread out and enveloped the sky above the Nine-Head Clan. Everyone in the Nine-Head Clan, including the clan leader and the sages, felt their scalps go numb. Under the influence of that Taoist rhyme, the rainwater around them seemed to have turned into sharp blades that could slice them into pieces at any moment. I've told you that I'm running out of patience. If you dare to utter another word, you won't be able to live even if the Nine-Head Clan has 9 heads. I'll ask you again, where's Guchanga and the 9-headed snakelet pearl? Chu Kuangren said coldly. The Nine-Head Clan leader and the sages who were lying on the ground were so furious that their mouths twitched. However, there was nothing they could do. Too domineering, this person was really too domineering. Annihilating the Nine-Head Clan? How could he say something like that? However, the Nine-Head Clan leader did not doubt that Chu Kuangren was capable of such a thing. Chu Kuangren had wreaked havoc in the Deep-Sea Scale tribe, and the Nine-Head Clan was far weaker than the Deep-Sea Scale tribe. How could they possibly stand up to Chu Kuangren? The 9-headed snakelet pearl and Guchanga did come to the Nine-Head Clan, but they're no longer here, the Nine-Head Clan leader said. He had given in to Chu Kuangren. Oh, where did they go? The Black Swamp. The Nine-Head Clan leader gritted his teeth and said, why did they go there? To help the young master revive the 9-headed snakelet lord. Chu Kuangren was surprised. Revive the 9-headed snakelet lord? Are you saying that they're going to revive the 9-headed snakelet? That's right. The 9-head clan leader then explained everything. It turned out that an Empyrean walker had recently arrived in the 9-head clan, and this Empyrean walker also had the bloodline of the 9-head clan. This was because he had become the young master of the 9-head clan. In order to revive the 9-headed snakelet, he had bribed Guchanga, who had been dispirited in the royal Azure dynasty, to steal the legendary 9-headed snakelet pearl for him. Chapter 354. The Onyx Swamp was a forbidden area of the 9-head clan. It was a densely packed swamp that contained a large amount of poisonous gas. Even an honorable would feel uncomfortable if they were to enter this place. At that moment, 2 people were walking in the Onyx Swamp. One of them was in front while the other was at the back. The one leading the way was the Empyrean walker from the craggy ocean tower, Li Zhe. Behind him was the crown prince of the royal Azure dynasty, Guchanga. The 2 of them walked all the way to the depths of the Onyx Swamp. In this place there was a terrifying and unparalleled ferocious beast. It had a pile of heads and its body was more than 10,000 feet long, the 9-headed dragon. Although the 9-headed snakelet was lying on the ground and looked like it had been dead for a long time, its ferocious and violent aura still lingered on its body. No living creature dared to approach the Onyx Swamp. In fact, the black swamp beneath Li Zhe and Guchanga's feet was caused by the leaking aura of the other party. As expected of an ancient wild beast. It has been dead for so many years, yet it still has such an aura. Li Zhe's eyes burned with passion. If he had the help of such a wild beast, he would definitely be able to take the lead in this era of great battles and obtain most of the emperor opportunities. Even the legendary Chu Kuangren would not be a match for it. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. This trip to the 9-head clan was the right choice. Buzz buzz. At that moment, the 9-headed snakelet pearl in Li Zhe's hand seemed to have sensed the presence of the 9-headed snakelet's corpse. It began to vibrate violently, and the 9-headed snakelet's sage spirit let out a series of baby-like cries. The nine-headed snakelet's corpse was also vibrating slightly. The sage spirit and the physical body resonated with each other. Gu Chang'e exclaimed beside him. No wonder the Nine-Head clan has been trying to get their hands on the nine-headed snakelet pearl all these years. It's because there's a nine-headed snakelet's corpse hidden in the Nine-Head clan. But where did this nine-headed snakelet come from? It's all because of the founding emperor of the Royal Azure Dynasty. Tens of thousands of years ago, the founding emperor of the Royal Azure Dynasty led an army to kill the nine-headed snakelet and used a formation to extract its sage spirit to refine this nine-headed snakelet pearl. In the end, Jiao Ying exhausted the last of his Holy Spirit energy and charged out of the formation. He ran to the Blackwater State and fell into a river. His body was covered in wounds and his blood dyed the entire river red. At that time, there was a tribe at the lower reaches of the river. They drank the water from the river and were tainted with the blood of the nine-headed snakelet. They then found the body of the nine-headed snakelet and brought it back to worship it. This was the origin of the Nine-Head clan, and also the reason why the Nine-Head clan and the Royal Azure Dynasty are enemies. Other than the fight for resources, there's also this grudge. Li Zhe spoke slowly. Then he tossed the nine-headed snakelet pearl into the nine-headed snakelet's body. His eyes were burning with passion. And today the god of the Nine-Head clan, the nine-headed snakelet, will finally return to the world. As the nine-headed snakelet pearl fused into the nine-headed snakelet's body, the scales on the surface of the nine-headed snakelet began to tremble. The originally lifeless body suddenly erupted with an extremely terrifying aura that swept through the entire swamp. Not long after, the eyes on the nine heads of the nine-headed snakelet opened one by one. Its body coiled up and it roared towards the sky. A peerless and savage aura spread out. The peerless beast from tens of thousands of years ago had once again descended upon the world. So powerful. Under the nine-headed snakelet's aura, Gu Chang'e could not help but tremble. The nine-headed snakelet's nose twitched. Its 9 pairs of blood-red lantern-like eyes stared at Gu Chang'e and Li Zhe. Kid, the aura on you two is very strange. One is of the same origin as me, the other has the bloodline of my enemy. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying murderous aura gushed out and landed on Gu Chang'e's body, pressing him to the ground. Beside him, Li Zhe stood where he was and looked at the nine-headed snakelet. Congratulations on your revival, nine-headed snakelet. So, you're the one who sent my Holy Spirit back. Very well, kid, you've done well. Seeing that you have a trace of my bloodline, I can promise you one thing. Speak. The nine-headed snakelet's voice was neither male nor female, and it was extremely sharp. It sounded as if it was about to pierce through one's eardrums. But Li Zhe did not mind at all. Very well, I want you to be my mount and accompany me to conquer the world. Hearing this, the nine-headed snakelet was stunned. Then it let out a sharp roar and a terrifying murderous aura poured out like a flood. Kid, how dare you? The nine-headed snakelet was an ancient beast with a noble bloodline. Asking him to be a human cultivator's mount was ridiculous. We still don't know who's the one being presumptuous. Li Zhe's eyes turned cold. Then with a thought, the nine-headed snakelet's pupils shrank. An intense pain shot through his mind, causing him to roll around on the ground, his 9 heads swinging back and forth. The entire black swamp shook violently. B** starred. Arg, it hurts. Li Zhe stood where he was and said calmly, the Nine-Head clan respects you like a god, but unfortunately I'm different. I'm the craggy ocean tower's Empyrean walker. I was born to reach the top. Nine-headed snakelet, you have no choice but to submit to me. Li Zhe stood proudly and his words were domineering. The nine-headed snakelet was enraged and roared, what did you do to me? Craggy Ocean Tower. This is a secret beast taming technique of the Craggy Ocean Tower. I've planted your Holy Spirit in Craggy Ocean Tower. With a single thought, your Holy Spirit will feel as if it's being crushed by the mountains and seas. Do you really think that I'll return your Holy Spirit to you without doing anything? Li Zhe said. Then he retracted the power of Craggy Ocean Tower. The nine-headed snakelet gradually recovered from the pain. He looked at Li Zhe with fear and said, Craggy Ocean Tower, I've never heard of this name. Empyrean Walker, could it be that you're from one of those unknown lands? Nine-headed snakelet, times have changed. This is the Great Tao manifestation era of great battles. Various unknown lands have appeared, and all sorts of sky prides have appeared. I'll give you one more chance. Submit to me and accompany me to the top. In the future when I become an emperor, you'll also rise to the top. The nine-headed snakelet's eyes flashed with a hint of struggle. However, due to his fear of craggy ocean tower, he had no choice but to nod and submit. A wise move, Li Zhe said. However, my physical body has been lying around for a long time. Even though it hasn't decayed yet, its vitality is fading. I need a large amount of flesh and blood to recover my strength. Also, this fellow is the bloodline of my enemy. I'm going to eat him. The nine-headed snakelet looked at Guchanga and said coldly, Brother Li, save me. Up to you. Guchanga looked at Li Zhe in fear. He did not expect Li Zhe, who had promised to let him enter the craggy ocean tower, to go back on his word and allow the nine-headed snakelet to eat him. Guchanga turned around and tried to escape, but the power of water and fire gushed out of the nine-headed snakelet's mouth and landed on his back. His internal organs, bones, and flesh were smashed to pieces. In just one move, he was severely injured by the nine-headed snakelet. Then, the nine-headed snakelet opened his mouth and swallowed Guchanga into his stomach amidst his terrified screams. Oh, it's still a Taoist physique. It can recover quite a bit of my strength. Next, it's over there. Most of my bloodline is gathered there. If I eat them, I'll be able to recover even faster. The nine-headed snakelet looked at the nine-head clan in the distance and licked his lips. Li Zhe frowned slightly when he heard this. Then he relaxed his brows. Sure. I don't have any feelings for this clan anyway. If they can help you recover faster, their deaths will be worth it. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.